Podcast, can you hear me? Podcast, can you see me? Podcast, can you find me in the night? Podcast, can you near me? Let me take that line again, then cut that in.
Are we done?
Nope.
I think we got it.
Podcast, are you near me? Podcast, can you hear me? Podcast, can you help me not do bits? I had to.
That was good. That was good. That was good.
The diction's a little off.
Yeah.
Barbara does it.
Do you want to try?
It's not
By all means, give it a go.
I would need the lyric sheet. And I'm not.
I'm gonna text it to you.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
Because the last time you were on,
Yeah?
let's remember the podcast started with you and I singing together.
What were you singing?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Pod,
That was good.
pod,
I went high, you went low.
pod,
Oh yes, of course.
podcast.
Because the
podcast,
thing about
podcast.
Barbara Jones Streisand is the way the diction is key to her vocal performance.
Jordan, I concede to you that I am not as good at singing as Barbra Streisand. I take this note. I don't push back on it.
No.
I'm certainly missing the diction. I would say I'm missing every other aspect of what makes her a good singer.
No. You've got the heart though. That's the thing.
Oh, sure. Okay, I'm texting you this.
All right.
I want to hear your take.
I turned my phone off.
Jordan.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
So obviously she's singing to her father.
Of course. The Great Beyond.
Papa, can you hear me? Papa, or in your case, podcast.
Yeah, let's take it again from the beginning. Remember podcast.
Podcast,
Should I go?
can you hear
Stay in
me? Podcast, can you see me? Podcast, can you find me in the night?
I mean, I am hearing the difference here. Yeah.
It's a rounder. Podcast, can you near me?
Mhm.
Podcast, can you hear me? Podcast, can you help me not be slowing down and then frightened?
Sure.
And then the swirl.
I mean,
It's good. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's a good score. Michel Legrand,
That's right.
Alan and Marilyn Bergman.
Yeah.
Forget about him.
can I just want to say right off
Alan and Marilyn on the lyrics, Michelle on the
Sure.
piano.
right off the top, here's the thought I had constantly while watching this movie. This thing's a fucking miracle. This is a movie where every single second of it, you're like, this should be collapsing.
This shouldn't work. This shouldn't
Everything
work.
about this movie shouldn't work. And I'm just like, anyone who has any cynicism or criticism about this movie, I'm just like, say whatever the fuck you want. This should not work one iota.
No.
We've seen the version of this movie that doesn't work in one
Albert
sense. Knobs.
Knobs.
Is them being like, well, Yentl worked.
That's not the only example of it, but it's,
It's
a
not.
perfect
I think
example.
it's the most perfect example
Yes.
of an aspect of this film not working, and then they use the other aspect of this film of it's a musical where one person sings and half the time it's just in her head.
Yes.
Half
Where
the
also-
time. I think 100% of the
She
time.
once in a while will sing with her
One
mouth, and
line,
you're almost
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like, wait, maybe you
But that's the
shouldn't.
thing. There are 10 different overriding elements to this movie that shouldn't work.
Where, like, if you pitch
Any
me
one
that,
of them.
Right.
I'm a guy behind a big desk with a slinky going, okay. And they're like, and she'll be the only one singing. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
I would nix
She's
it.
starring, producing, co-writing, directing. She's 40.
Has
Yeah.
she directed a movie
No.
before? No.
The character in the book is 16.
Yeah, but she's got a baby face.
The studio that was going to make this just got bankrupted by Heaven's Gate. A movie this is kind of similar to in certain ways on paper in terms of what the cost of it is going to be.
and this sort of I say this kindly, the vanity element.
Yes, all of
yeah,
it.
right.
You're just like, any one of these things shouldn't work. And the fact that she's holding all of them simultaneously. And Knobs is a great, 3 decades later, how hard can it be?
Right.
Let's just try to pull another Yentl.
But the movie, though,
Yes.
obviously there's Barbara's got a I don't want to say kitsch value, but like
Yes.
people flock to her and celebrate her even when she's not at her peak.
Yeah.
The movie rocks.
Agreed.
Yeah, this movie kicks ass.
Yeah, I agree.
right. I mean,
David?
I love Yentl. Yentl's
Okay,
great.
let's say it. Sing it loud.
I love Yentl. I don't
Okay,
know.
rounder.
Rounder. I love Yentl. I
Yeah.
agree with you, Griff, that
Keep in your pants. Hold on.
I
starting to sound like
I love Yentl so much I want to swim nude about it.
it's starting to sound like every character in this movie.
Yes.
This film, let's just say right off the bat,
It's
goes
true. Yentl is like
this goes into the Warhorse canon of every single
wants
character who comes across Yentl is like, fuck, I don't know.
can't stop thinking about Yentl.
Stop. Jesus.
Please introduce our podcast.
What were you? I want you to finish your point about how much you love Yentl.
Can't remember what it was, but it was sort of along the Warhorse lines of like, how can you not love Yentl? But introduce our podcast, and then then we can speak without fear.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
We want to get past that threshold.
Right.
This is Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
I'm David.
It's a podcast about filmographies, directors who have massive success early on in their careers, sometimes not even in directing, in being one of the greatest stars of the 20th century,
Right.
and are given a series of blank checks for how much he had to fight for 20 years to get this movie made. It was ultimately a blank check.
Yeah.
Her guarantor is everything up until this point.
Sure.
This is a rare sort of first movie blank check. Obviously, Star is Born, we've already covered as part of this series, also functions as a guarantor, a movie that she basically ghost directs. This is her first proper directing credit. I fucking derailed my own spiel. Series of blank checks make whatever crazy passion projects they want. Sometimes those checks clear and sometimes they bounce. Papa. It's a miniseries on the films of Barbra Streisand. Barbra. I have to constantly remind myself not to do the Barbara.
No way. She
No
cut
way.
that out.
No way.
She
Cut
took
it.
the A out.
She took it out cleaner.
Are you considering her television specials as part of her resume?
I'll have you know, Jordan, I bought the box set and I've been working through them.
Nice.
There's
she,
an out-of-print
she
box
was
set.
actively
No, I know.
involved in the production of
I
this.
know. As of now, we're not planning to cover those in any way.
Okay.
But I've been watching
have
them
you
for
have you watched
supplemental.
Color Me Barbara yet?
Yes.
Because she sings to an anteater in that.
Yeah, it's great. This is when TV was good. That's my main takeaway from watching these specials. More of this, less of everything the fucking else.
Yeah. And then she's the one where she's like a little 5-year-old girl.
Yes.
That's the first one.
They're so formally weird.
Totally. And
Yeah.
they're shot on that like 1-inch videotape.
Yeah,
That's
which
just
I
like, well, okay, that's fair. It's an aesthetic choice.
I love the vibe of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, today we're talking about, and look, it means a lot when I say this. What I'm about to say lands with a lot of weight.
Oh, here it comes.
The titular movie of this series.
Go on.
An really
why is that?
important distinction, because this series on the films of Barbra Streisand is called Podcastle.
Podcastle.
That's the center of the ship where the stick in the middle.
That's
That's
the mast.
No, the
podcast.
the podcast. There you go. That's funny, right?
Yeah, that's funny.
That's a good joke.
It's a solid joke.
Okay, thanks.
Should call a friend of the show, a real mensch, doing us a mitzvah.
Sure.
Producer Ben Frisch
Yes.
filling in on the
Hi,
ones
Ben.
and zeros today.
Hey, everybody.
And you brought a book. Please show Griffin.
Yeah, this is just a fabulous coffee table book. It sits proudly on my coffee table every day. It's Barbra Streisand's My Passion for Design, which just includes, hundreds of pages of Tiffany lamps, American arts and crafts furniture, and her screening room, which actually does look
It looks
pretty
unbelievable.
fabulous.
Yeah. Ben, the dog. What is the publication date on that book?
I was trying to find this out. I
Okay.
don't know if this is the original dog or the clone.
You knew
dog.
the question I was going to ask.
Yes.
Barbara, of course, famously had a dog that she loved, and when the dog was dying, she pulled DNA so that she could clone the dog and
Yeah.
never not have that dog.
Yeah.
But we don't know if that's dog 1 or dog 2.
She should have painted a number on them
think it
like
would be
a
dog-
rabbit.
It would be Dog 1 or Dog Prime, I think is what it would be.
I finally arrived.
There you
My
go.
giant.
Yeah.
That's the sound. This is not going to be juiced in post.
No.
This is the sound of me dropping "My name is Barbara" on my desk.
It's a big boy.
It's
It's a hefty boy.
I'm on page 440, give or take,
Okay.
and it's great.
Yes.
It's so good.
JJ has been able to pull from it, tear through it pretty quickly and put it in the dossier. But
Yeah.
admittedly, because of the time when we're recording this, synced up around the release of the book and the Barbara reevaluation, we have not been able to read it thoroughly ourselves. But I was saying I was going on a trip and I was annoyed that the book wasn't going to arrive until the day after my flight. And you said, Griffin, you would not be allowed to bring that on.
Yeah, it's a
no,
deadly
it's not
weapon.
one that you can't really read it in bed. It
kind
hurts
of
your
a
chest.
Kindle only, in my opinion.
My thought was, it's the size of 12 Kindles.
More.
My
maybe.
thought was I could tape a handle to it and make it my carry-on.
That'd be good.
Just,
right,
this is my
And then
one
you sort of
carry-on.
like put your clothes in between the pages, and then
Yes.
it's actually like basically a suitcase.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's 970 pages.
Put a leather
and
belt around
It's
it.
not like just filled with indexes and appendices and photos. It's 970 damn pages.
It's full pages,
Yeah.
right?
She's only 81 years old. She could have another 15, 20 years of life, and she's going to have to
hope
do
so.
an addendum.
I
hope
it'll
a
be like when Ken Burns had to do a couple more baseball episodes.
I hope a year from now she puts out a second volume that's also 900 pages.
It's just as long.
It's been a
but
busy
it's just
year.
her being like, I went to the coffee shop,
Yes.
I got an egg salad sandwich.
But-
It gets a little more minute.
I mean, the degree to which, David, you're not. I mean,
She
there's
actually
a,
talks about
there's
food
a
a lot,
sequence
right?
in this
Yes.
book where she wants rice pudding,
Uh-huh.
but she doesn't want rice pudding with raisins, which
She's
I
right.
disagree with.
I
But that's besides the point.
pin in the raisins. I have
Sure.
a raisin
3
story.
chapters on this?
Well, no, but there's a whole section about she dispatches Elliot Gould all across Manhattan
God.
because it's late. So Elliot Gould's running around Manhattan trying to find her a diner at 1 a.m. that will serve her rice pudding with no raisins, and he did it.
Yeah, good for him. I
Yeah.
mean, that's Elliot Gould, step
Sure.
above and beyond.
Yes.
Do you have a comment on this before I want to say something about Jordan and raisins?
Yes, I think I know where this is going, but we've talked. I've talked a lot on the show about certain sort of humiliation, domination, subjugation fetishes that I don't understand, that don't align with
That
my
you're
psychology.
interested in. Yes.
If Barbra Streisand yelled at me to go get her raisins at 3 o'clock in the morning, I would come immediately.
God.
I'm not even
right.
saying she's my type, but what you just
Might want to
described.
bleep that out too.
Keep it in and
I
triple
get
it.
it. No, don't do that. Keep it in, but don't triple it.
Okay, quadruple it.
If Barbra Streisand yelled at me to go get her raisins at 3 o'clock in the morning, I would
Raisins.
Jordan and I have seen a lot of each other in the last few days because we were at the Iron Claw screening on Monday night,
Uh-huh.
and then we were at the Napoleon screening on Tuesday afternoon, a sort of rush of the end of the year, final movies trying to get under the wire for voters and stuff. And both screenings, he was walking around with a Ziploc bag filled to the brim with raisins, quoting Jordan Hoffman now, the size of cockroaches.
This is what I
End
heard.
quote.
This had already
And
hit my
basically-
ears.
Trying to make people take a raisin in, maybe not aggressive fashion, but like he was pushing the raisins
I'm just saying
pretty hard.
they're imported.
Sure.
They're from, I believe, Turkey.
Uh-huh.
They are so good, and I don't have them with me.
You're
because,
flying raisins in from Turkey?
No, I bought them in the store, but they're really. There's a special kind of plump, juicy golden sultana,
Okay.
which sounds like a Marvel villain, but she's actually it's a type of raisin.
It is.
And
larger.
People are frequently, you always hear like, oh, I don't like it with raisins. I don't, this anti-raisin sentiment has got
Raisins
to end.
rule. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
I
terrific.
don't like a raisin.
So I went
much,
around
I will say.
and
I'm more like
everybody I get,
Babs.
there was 1 or 2 people who just flat out refused. I think
Uh-huh.
Ehrlich, of course.
Me and
But you-
Ehrlich, yeah, he wouldn't. eat
Ehrlich
anything.
refused and Sims refused. So those 2 guys
I-
I got problems. But everybody
Yeah,
else
the
that I gave one
Davids.
to
Yeah.
initially were like, sure, I'll take one of your raisins. And they were like,
Blown away.
oh, this is really good.
Okay, propaganda. A couple people seem to like them. A lot of people are like, it's a raisin.
You're,
Like, it
you're
was-
telling me this is the Yentl of raisins and that everyone on its face goes, not my kind of thing, this isn't going to work. They
Yeah.
take a bite and they go, I'm won over.
I saw a lot of
yeah.
people eat the raisin and go like, basically yell at you, yeah, Jordan, it's a raisin. Like, it's just like, they didn't dislike it, but they had maybe
Well,
been
I don't
promised
know.
a
I
false
see
bill
it.
of
I
goods.
see it a little differently. I think where is it written that you cannot give a raisin to somebody at a
I
school?
mean, he's like the fucking Halloween house where the parents are like, don't be taking random shit out of a Ziploc bag. You need wrapped candies.
Our guest today is Jordan Hoffman, king of the raisins.
Jordan Hoffman, where do you work these days, Jordan? What's your actual title?
I
You
write
have a
about
staff job now.
Yeah, I've been on this show now
Company man.
5 times.
Wait a second.
This is the 5th time.
This is your 5th
Correct?
time on.
Yeah.
I believe you're right.
Blue
yeah.
Steel, finally out on Blu-ray now.
Wow.
Available in physical media for
Good
the
film.
first time in a long time.
Yeah.
Then
Melvin.
Melvin,
Yep. And Howard.
2001. What's the other one I'm forgetting?
Beowulf.
Beowulf, where you were drinking mead.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
on
So,
Zoom.
and what's funny is that I've been on this show now 5 times.
Yeah.
The
The 5 movies that define your personality.
every single time it's in a new space.
Yeah.
Wow.
Every single time
If
it's
I
been
can-
in a new room.
if
One
I
was a
can
room
look.
to the right, one was a room to the left.
Yes, you did
One-
both studios at Audio Boom.
and
You
then-
did Ben's
Yeah.
apartment.
Blue Steel was in the nice studio at Audio Boom.
Right.
Melvin Howard was in the dog shit studio.
Then
Right.
where I deserve
Beowulf
to be,
was
let's be honest.
Zoom.
And then
Yes.
and the last one was at
2001.
Ben's apartment.
Ben's
and this one, so I just want to say to the listeners at home.
Yeah.
To the listeners.
Oh, well, you know, both floors of Audio Boom too.
Yeah,
He did the original
I
Audio
know,
Boom
that's what
floor,
I'm
the
saying.
second floor, and then
They're
both
not
I
gonna-
studios.
said the
That's
good
why.
and the dog shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not
No,
going to
but
let
there
me
were
on the same floor
three
twice.
different Audio Boom studios because
Fuck.
they moved from one floor to another.
Yeah, God. We've been in a bunch of rooms
have.
over
No,
the
that's
years.
wild.
Fifth location, and I'll say before when we got here,
Yeah.
David and I got here early, on time, and Ben got here on time. As we were waiting for Griffin,
Okay, I was.
I went to
5
the
minutes late.
went to the bathroom,
Not too bad.
and I want to say to the listeners at home:
Uh-huh.
should you ever be a guest on Blank Check, the podcast?
And don't encourage them too much.
Well, I'm just saying, should in some
Sure.
alternate reality, you wind up coming to the office.
Uh-huh. The Czech Republic is what we call it.
We do.
Should it ever happen, and if you needed to use what the British call the WC, right,
Uh-huh.
David? The
The
British
loo.
The loo. Water closet, you should feel confident that you will never run out of bathroom tissue or toilet paper. There are, and I counted, 40 rolls of toilet
There's a
paper
lot in there.
in that bathroom.
I will say there was
40 rolls.
There had been some dramatic, emotional conversation ongoing in the Blank Check text thread, and I broke through it with a knife by saying, by the way, I just bought $50 worth of toilet paper for the office. You are the first record to come in here since the $50 restock of toilet paper. There was a Target deal. I took advantage. In the closet,
Oh, there's more.
you wouldn't believe how much
Holy
more.
crap.
That
literally.
was every roll I could fit in.
So there's more than 40.
Correct.
There's probably 80.
Yes.
Lord, no.
Well, if there's 80, there's now 79 after I've been in there.
Well,
hey,
hey now.
come on now.
Hey, now.
So to the listeners at home, raise a glass.
You're holding up
he's
your
holding up a polar
seltzer. Yeah.
I want you to know that these two friends
Uh-huh.
can have fiber from morning, noon, and night and
Yeah.
just deuce their lives away and not worry about having an unclean rear end.
Uh-huh.
This place is stocked.
Thank you. Thank you.
All this clapping we're doing.
New toilet seat too. We replaced our toilet seat.
It's like the
recently
Lion King on Broadway.
because a
It's just
guest
like
broke it.
so many applause lines.
Every scene's an applause break. Yeah. Jordan,
Yeah.
you said
You know?
that not only is Yentl one of your favorite movies, your favorite movie of all time.
No, I never said that.
Okay, but it
It's
is.
sort of a fundamental movie for you. I
It's
think.
well, it's
Yes.
totally fundamental because of my age and
Sure.
my background. But David, just real quick, you asked me before.
Oh, okay,
my
yeah,
background
please.
is I'm from Poland and I you changed sex and all this.
No, 'cause
but
you're a Jewish suburban boy.
right.
Yes.
David, you mentioned earlier. I'm working at a new job.
Yeah, sorry. Right. I was trying to
It's this
tee
new.
that up
It's
for
this
you.
new website called.
And then you decided to talk about our bathroom.
Yeah.
Getting off of me. It's a new website called themessenger.com.
Uh-huh.
It's a new news outlet. It's new.
Okay.
It just
New.
started in the summer. So like not everybody knows about it, but it's great.
Was the first news story they broke? We exist.
Well, I
Breaking
guess,
news. We're an outlet
I
now.
would imagine so. I mean, they had to let people know that
Yeah.
they were around.
Front page of the first
Front-
ever New York Times is New York Times created
That's
to
right.
tell Times of New York.
And then they criticize themselves.
Yeah.
So it's a nut place to go to read the news, and it's great. And I read it every day. I learn about what's happening in the world of real news, like
Uh-huh.
the wars and Michigas like that. And
Sure.
the president.
There's a whole Michigas vertical there.
And then they've got stuff like the sports and the tech
Uh-huh.
and all that. Kind
You
of thing.
write about the pictures.
I write about movies. I
Yeah.
review movies. I write articles. I interview people. And I think people at home, if you're looking, if you're tired of the New York Times, for example,
Uh-huh.
they cost. There's no, you got to pay. Messenger.com is free. Read
Free.
the Messenger instead.
Free.
There you go.
Now, I'm sorry if I misrepresented how beloved Yentl is in your canon, but the thing you did say to us is that when you were a child, you would play Yentl.
Yeah, there's a little bit of truth to that. Yeah, there is that because that's a little weird, right? You play Star Wars in the back, and
Yes.
you get like a stick and pretend it's a lightsaber.
Right.
Well, you got to understand. So I grew up in New Jersey,
Uh-huh.
this foreign land,
Sure.
in the 80s, right? So this came out December 83.
Long time ago, galaxy
So
far, far away.
I
Yeah.
would have just turned 9.
Wow.
So I'm
I
an
mean,
old man.
Return of the Jedi has been in theaters for half the year when this comes out. It's
Right,
probably been
yes.
just
Right.
The
So,
talk of the summer.
We're done talking about
Sure.
from Jabba the Hutt to Rabbi Nachman. It's right there, you know?
I mean, we're thinking, will Babs sing Yub Nub during this
Yes.
movie? We're not sure. Maybe.
Will it get changed to Jedi Rocks 20 years later in a special edition?
So, I am not a particular. Yeah, my relationship with Judaism is a little odd in that I am not particularly. I don't come from a particularly religious family.
Sure, it's cultural.
Cultural.
You're the only cultural Jew who ever existed. Yes.
Well,
A secular Jew. Who would have thought?
the listeners, you got listeners that people from Indiana listening. They don't know from any
I mean,
of this.
we're huge in the flyover states.
No, I mean
Humongous.
seriously. So
They don't like when we say that.
my for example, my grandfather my mother's father was like a heavy Jew, but didn't believe any of that stuff. Never went
Right.
to temple.
Yes.
Didn't pray. But yet when the holidays came, we did it. And why is another story. So when this movie came out, it was and I went to school, Hebrew school on Sundays.
Right.
Although I never had a bar mitzvah. But it was like a big deal because it was definitely like an inside baseball
Sure,
movie.
it's like this is a movie about Jewish people.
Yeah.
That's
It was like we're going to hear
there are
things
Jewish
we know.
artists out there, but this is about like the shtetl and like,
Yeah.
Talmud and
Well,
things.
Fiddler on the Roof the movie comes out in
71.
71.
Yeah.
1971.
Oh, yeah. That was already on VHS, and that
Right.
was so when Grandma and Grandpa and all the uncles and whatnot would come, we would watch Fiddler on the Roof, and finally we had another movie to watch.
Yeah, it's kind of
So-
like
The
all
second
right,
one.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, Dr. Zhivago also, but even though it's not Jewish, but that was
Sure.
old Russia, at least.
Old
So that-
country.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
could be, right. This is where we come from.
yeah.
Right,
And it's another 6 or 7 years until we meet Fievel.
Yeah.
When does Fievel pop up?
Fievel, old enough that I didn't see it first run
Okay.
because I was too old for that.
I mean, we all know
Too
he
cool.
went west in 1991. That's that's when he did it.
So, there were like things that you would, they're in the movie Yentl, they're studying, they do prayers and they talk about the
Yes.
Torah and the Talmud and all these things. So it was things that connected with us in kind of a private way. We were all sort of I didn't grow up in an all Jewish neighborhood, assimilated Jews, but like this is our little secret for the cousins and the kids on the block that were Jewish. But on my block, it was only Jews and Italians, and everybody got along. But we had our thing, they had their thing. So,
Making it sound like the mob.
this thing of ours. So when it came out, it was a really, really big deal. Now, also, this is we are all sort of like secular New Jersey, nice liberal Jews. All of our moms were whatever wave of feminist that was. Second wave feminists. They're doing things there. And of course, all the husbands were cool with that. At least my dad was supportive.
Good to know.
So how you're wondering how did we play Yentl? Like when I
Sure,
say,
yes.
if I were to say to you who played Star Wars, you go, oh, you each grabbed a stick, and one was Darth Vader, and one was Luke Skywalker. You
Easy.
got it instantly.
Yeah.
How would we play Yentl? And it's really weird. But here's what
You don't say.
here's what I remember. I remember like somebody would have to play Papa
Of course.
and would have to be dead.
Yeah.
And then
Sure.
somebody would have to like cry over the body and
Pretend they
sing.
couldn't hear anything.
Yeah, pretend they couldn't hear,
Yeah.
stick cotton in the air.
Yeah.
So there was that. And there was that little scene that we would do. And then there would be like the scene of like getting dressed for the wedding to the tomorrow night number.
Yeah, these are look, when you said you played Yentl as a child, I had a hard time picturing it.
First, I was like, was there a black box theater in the backyard, and
Right.
you were like
No, we're-
coming out, all in costume?
We're definitely in the backyard and we're like kind of doing scenes. So we would
These
kind
are
of
not the scenes I would have guessed you would
but
be
this
playing.
is what I'm
Right.
remembering.
The suit fitting for the wedding?
A little bit like we would be singing, like it would be
Yeah, a little room in the crotch there.
Yeah. There would be a little. Well, tomorrow night. I got tomorrow night. Am I the bride or am I the groom?
Sure.
It's very. So there'd be like a lot of like, just like pretending you're wearing a suit or a dress and whatnot. Yes, it was in retrospect a ridiculous thing for us to do. But
Yes.
we also used to play a big game. We used to play a lot. Do you remember the TV movie? Well, maybe you don't. The TV movie of Gilligan's Island when they get off the island.
Yes.
What was that called?
I don't fucking know.
It's
what you
not
guys are
called
talking about.
no, because Return to Gilligan's Island is the opposite of
They
what
go
you're
back to
describing.
the island. It
Yeah.
sounds like we got Rescue from Gilligan's
Yeah, that's the
Island.
one.
Yes.
We played that a lot.
That makes more
You guys
sense.
sound like you were bored as fuck. Jesus
we
Christ!
we didn't have
Go
that.
put a firecracker in a mailbox or something.
That's the Goyish half of you saying that. We wouldn't do that. We would play Gilligan's Island and Yentl. What do you want from me?
Gilligan's Island is one of those pieces of American pop culture that I know nothing about.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like I never saw reruns.
Wow.
My parents never watched it.
It's probably our best cultural export. When people talk about like the uniquely American art forms, and it's jazz,
Right.
the comic
blues,
book,
right? Comic books, sure.
Gilligan.
You know,
Is he our hero, Gilligan?
well, he's like the
Well,
lovable doofus.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's what are some other Gilligan archetypes? I mean,
What are the Gilligan archetypes?
Gilligan's got the hat. I think I've seen a
they've all
picture of him
got
with a hat.
Oh, the skipper wears a hat too.
Professor Mary
Okay, but then
Ann,
who's the skipper?
millionaire and his wife.
The
Well, the skipper, I'd argue the skipper's not the hero because he got him fucking stranded on this island.
But is the skipper
No,
like the coach from
For
Cheers? Like, is he the lovable older guy?
Sort of.
He's a lot more ornery because he gets worked up by Gilligan fumbling things.
And then, right, like, I'm looking at the
Gilligan's
credits
a
here.
fool.
And I
Well,
see
Jesus,
Thurston
first of all,
Howell the third, and I'm like,
I love him, but
I know that name.
Yes.
And I literally know it because, like, even though there are several layers between me and Gilligan's Island,
yeah, it made
it's
its way through.
penetrated enough as, like, shorthand for
He's
rich
like a
guy.
Monopoly man. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
You know, first of all, you assign
Ginger is the cutie. Everyone likes Ginger.
Well,
Has a
she's
crush?
the no. She's the buxom Marilyn.
She's
Monroe.
she's like an Anne Margaret Marilyn Monroe style diva movie star sex pot.
Yes.
Okay.
And
The professor is also on the island who has a very beautiful daughter, but she's a little bit more demure.
Is this Mary Ann is
Correct.
the daughter? Okay. She
Professor
looks very
and
wholesome.
Mary Ann?
wait, the Marian's the professor's daughter?
Yes.
The professor?
Yes.
I never knew that.
And they're on an island?
Who's a mother?
Is
Yes.
anyone else on
I
the
don't know.
island?
She's gone. Hi, this is Griffin recording an audio pickup on his phone about a month or two after recording the Yentl episode. I've been informed by Alex Barron, who is editing this particular episode, that Marianne, in fact, is not the professor's daughter, and that I perhaps should record a correction, addendum, apologia. Dog sitting for my sister, and now the dog is barking. She's upset as well by my grave error. I was going to get dragged on Maine if I didn't correct this on Mike. I know, Luna. I know. She's not his daughter. I get it. But to be fair, it was always the read I got from watching the show. I did not read it as romantic, flirtatious relationship, which apparently most people did. To me, that feels crazy. I went to the Wikipedia. I saw, in fact, that Marianne is not his daughter, but just a small-town girl who won a contest to go on the cruise ship by herself. The 3-hour tour, I should say, before I make another mistake. So Marianne is not related to the professor, although it also seems like they never consummated their relationship. To be fair, I feel like the universe is fucking with me now. I clearly would have bet any amount of money that I was right. This is now my Berenstein Bears. This is the thing I'm convinced has been changed as a psyop or as evidence of the fact that we live in a simulation. So apologies. I'm so sorry for my mistake. I've had the privilege of talking to you for many years, and now it's my opportunity to step back and listen, and also to tend to my sister's dog, Luna, who for the last 24 hours has been just chock full of diarrhea. It's been a really, really fun day. Who's on the island?
Yeah.
Gilligan, the skipper,
No,
millionaire and his wife.
Lovey.
I
A
hear
movie
you.
star,
Lovey
Professor
Howell.
and Marianne
No, no,
here on
I hear you that
Gilligan's
they're on,
Island.
but do they ever meet other people on the island?
Well,
or-
Headhunters.
Globetrotters.
Globetrotters.
Yes. They had to play against them.
But why
Several
are they
times.
there and then they can't help them get off?
Plane crashes or something, and then they're able to escape, but they can't take them with them.
Headhunt.
So they would bring in guest stars by having it be like, there's only room on
They
the
had this
boat for
problem.
us.
It was like the
Right.
Lost problem where it was like, we can't just keep having 6 characters with no outside like interference. You need people in here to mix the pot up. And so people would show up and get off the island.
Yeah.
And it would always raise this question of like, how the fuck can they not get off the
There
island?
were also a lot of astronauts.
Yes.
Like they would land,
Right.
and then NASA would take them
and
away.
they'd be
Gi-
like, my
Gilligan-
capsule's too small.
Yeah, and Gilligan would try to all get them, and he'd screw
Right.
it up.
And he'd say like, can't you just, when you get back to land, tell them we're
Yeah.
here?
Didn't work out.
It never
Right.
worked. There were robots sometimes.
Yeah.
What
Well,
was the name of?
I'm still very upset. You assigned culpability to the skipper for getting them on that island.
I do.
There was a storm.
He didn't handle it very well. He didn't
was-
weather that storm.
It was a small ship. The SS Minnow really was not equipped.
I know, but I'm not saying Gilligan's not the hero of the show.
It's his island.
But I also wouldn't say the skipper's the hero.
No. No.
There's
There is no
only
hero.
three seasons of this fucking thing.
Tell
Yeah, but this is the thing. You used to make 40 episodes of a TV show and they would run for 50 years.
Right. It looks like they made it to 98, so I guess they were long seasons. Right.
real quick.
And they made all these TV movies.
Tell David about the Headhunters.
No, we're gonna move on from this.
David,
Yes.
you like to treat yourself, right?
Absolutely.
I feel like you're the one friend in our friend group, Blank Check Productions, that likes to treat yourself.
Gotta do it.
Here's some things I know about you. You love to get a pedicure and opt for the extra 10-minute foot massage with green tea infused lotion.
I mean, that's very specific, but sure.
You refuse to make coffee at home because that fancy coffee shop is right downstairs, the one that serves everything on pure ivory.
Yeah, that's me.
You opt for that
I
extra
do
legroom
do
seat
this.
on the plane because your vacation starts now.
I do that also because I'm quite tall.
Okay, well, that's a humble brag. You always buy double at a sale because it's actually like saving money.
I'm going to tell you, I don't think I've ever done that.
I got you
That's-
dead to
that's
rights.
really odd.
I named 4 things that you specifically do, none of which are prompts from ad copy.
Never.
Well, David, if you treat yourself to the top options with everything in life, why settle when finding a doctor?
It is my
Why
health.
is that when you settle?
That's a good point.
For less?
I should go for the best.
Don't you want the extra legroom of medical care?
Well, I just don't know where to look, so I just kind of, wing it.
Creak. Enter ZocDoc.
Hello.
Hello, I am ZocDoc.
Are you the place where you can find and book tens of thousands of top-tier doctors, all with verified patient reviews?
Yes, it is your health after all.
Okay, well, here's some things I've heard about ZocDoc. You're a
David!
free...
Don't go settle. Go for the best. Find the right doctor for you. Come to me.
You're a free app and website where I can search and compare highly rated in-network doctors near me and instantly book appointments with them online.
Got more options than you know.
Once you find a doctor you want, you can book them immediately. No waiting on hold with a receptionist.
I hate it.
They all have verified reviews from real actual patients.
I love it.
And you can filter for your insurance, for where they're located, and if they treat any condition you're searching for. Wait time typically to see a doctor booked on ZocDoc is just between 24 and 72 hours. That's it.
That's it. And look, worst case
Sometimes
scenario,
same day.
you land in the middle there, you got a little Nolte Murphy on your hands.
Exactly. You could even throw in another 48 hours.
Well, then we're going over.
Well, I'm just saying if you're watching them. Those films are actually about 2 hours.
Oh, so maybe in a best case scenario, you watch 2 Walter Hill buddy cop films. And ZocDoc
24
is
times.
responsive. Okay.
Listen. I've used ZocDoc. It's really easy to
Mm-hmm.
use. You should too. Go to ZocDoc.com/check and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/check. ZocDoc.com/check.
You said download by accident.
Download it.
You're getting Z-pilled.
You should download ZocDoc.
Zai.
I'm going to close my Wikipedia page for Gilligan Island.
I had such a good Gilligan joke that I forgot now.
Well, you forgot it, and maybe it comes back to you. But it's just one of those shows that, like,
Yeah.
Family Guy might do a joke about, and I'd be like,
Yeah.
I don't really know what
You're
this
lucky
means.
because the Headhunters, which it's Griffin's
It's
too
fucking getting
doesn't
it in
want
here.
to talk about, was a very racist and offensive trope.
yeah, I bet you wonder why I didn't want to talk about
So
it.
another cultural problem is in the
Sure.
Pale settlement in like the turn of the 18th, 19th
Uh-huh.
century, and if you were a woman,
Yes.
Oh, okay.
you're not allowed to read.
We're on Yentl. Okay, good.
You're
Thank
not,
God.
you're not allowed to read. You're not allowed to pray. And
Yes.
if you're a religious Jew, all you want to do is read and play. But
Right.
as in the rest of most societies, there's a strict gender divide.
Sit in this corner, read your picture books.
the
Yeah.
men do X and the women do Y.
No
and
time for serious thought.
a
That's
young,
not for you.
A young woman in the shtetl named Yentl,
Yentl.
Yentl.
whose father is a rabbi,
Mhm.
and he's on the down low is teaching her about the Torah, which
Right.
is like the big
Let's say it.
instruction manual.
Kind of a woke king.
Yeah, oh for sure.
Papa?
Ultimate ally, Papa?
Yeah, Papa's totally woke.
Yeah.
So Yentl has in her a spark and a love of learning and
Yeah.
knowledge, and she is resentful of the fact that she is constricted by her gender
Mhm.
and can't do this. Now, the story of Yentl was written by the
Okay, right. Yes. Isaac
because
Bashevis
there's
Singer.
difference
That's
between
right.
the book and the movie.
Right. In 1962, Nobel Prize winner. I mean, he wasn't yet, but he
Yeah.
would be. Isaac Bashevis Singer
Mm-hmm.
publishes Yentl the Yeshiva Boy, which you have read.
Yeah, it's a short story.
Sure.
Uh,
How short are we talking?
Singer, by the way, he lived
5'2".
2 pages? Yeah.
No, it's 20 pages. Singer at the time lived in the Bel Nord which is like right across from Zabar's.
Up West Side. He's
Could you
got
imagine?
a block named after
Yeah.
him. I used to walk by it all the time.
So he was literally eating whitefish while he was typing the story.
Right.
Perfect.
And the minute it's published, it's earmarked for a film. It's sent to Barbra Streisand in 1968.
She's coming right off of Funny Girl.
She had just finished Funny Girl, and she
Yeah.
was like, next part, right here. Bang,
Yeah.
bang.
And what is said to her immediately? You are already too old, too
Yes.
feminine, too famous, and also, and this is a thing that comes up a lot in the development of this movie, you just did Funny Girl, won an Oscar.
Sure.
You should not play another, quote, ethnic
Ethnic.
role.
That is the word she gets. Too ethnic, aka you can't play two Jews in a row.
Right.
Basically.
And it's wild because it's like, here's this undeniable, like, fucking first movie landing, blockbuster hit,
right.
Oscar winner, and everyone's like, well, you got away with it one time. But let's start hiding the Judaism a little bit. Let's not put it front and center.
Right. And good luck trying that with Barbara.
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing. Streisand is like, absolutely not. I want to do this. I won't be listening to you. She brings on Ivan Passer, Sherry and Ivan Passer, who had written The Fireman's Ball.
Yeah. He's great. And he made some movies in America later.
Right. And he also is like, you're too old and you're too famous.
Right.
He's hitting her with
At
it
this
as
point,
well.
she's like 25 or 26.
Right. And they're like, you can't play a 16-year-old. What is she
Right.
crazy? And she's like, yeah, you're right. I'll wait another 15 years.
Yeah.
She felt it was a universal story on the limits that are put upon a woman.
Yeah.
And that is why she wanted to make it. She was frightened to do it herself at this time, right? She could have in 69, maybe. Well, it's even more hard to imagine a studio giving her the money, I guess, even with her celebrity. Like if she was like, well, I'll direct it myself.
No, I mean, it is one of the things that gives this movie its juice. I would argue it's the thing. Is like, this is her Fitzcarraldo 20-year battle to get this movie uphill.
Yeah.
Right.
And the more she puts into trying to prove to people that she can make the movie and make the movie work, the more she's like living in the headspace of Yentl.
Right.
Being like, I have to push through this
Right.
fucking system.
The world says I can't, and I'm going
Right.
to do it. Yeah. And what's interesting, so one of the things, having just read the story, and I'll say there are two changes between the story and the movie.
Okay.
One is the movie takes a character out, very important character. I'm going to blow your minds. Avador marries somebody else in
What?
the story.
Holy fucking
Who's he marry?
So like fishmonger's
You mean
daughter.
later?
No,
Like-
before Anshul marries Hadass, he goes and marries. Like, you remember the scene in the movie when he's like, I can't sleep at night. I
Yes.
need a woman. So there's like a local woman, and she's like a tanner's daughter. So she smells of like, bloody skin. And she's described as like kind of like gross and obese and not fun.
Oh,
So
Come on, Isaac.
what do you want from me? So she
I'm judging you.
so Ivador marries her
Okay.
and it's immediately regrets it. So that's like a whole other wing of the story that's just cut out.
Okay.
Probably Barbara cut it out because unfair to women, right?
It also just sort of sounds superfluous. I don't know that we need that.
Unnecessary. And then the other big change, which I really found interesting, and then as I was reading a little bit about Yentl today, 2023 online, is that the story, in a way, was very prophetic in the way it treats gender, trans rights, non-binary characters. I'm being 100% sincere. Like, it's pretty damn modern. The story concludes with Anshul / Yentl actually says, I'm neither one nor the other, and embraces a trans lifestyle for good.
Wow. Yeah.
And Barbara kills that. Well, I shouldn't say kill it. Barbara altered it.
Yeah.
And said, that's not my story. My story is Yentl truly becomes Anshul in the story.
Interesting.
And embraces a sort of a gender fluid, non-binary, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And then lives as Anshul forever. Barbara's whole point of the movie, as you were saying, is I'm up against the system. There's sexism in the world. I want this to be a story about a woman overcoming these obstacles. And in her head, even though she's masquerading as Anshul, she's always Yentl inside, whereas in the story, Yentl truly becomes Anshul. So,
but there is something
Interesting. Okay.
fascinatingly, like, deeply queer about this movie.
Oh, my
in
God.
the way it examines everyone else's relationship with Yentl. It's
Well,
not
and
her
her-
own internal
yes,
battle in the same
true.
way.
I mean, well, the way Avador looks at her in the water, and then the way that Avador looks at her after she reveals herself,
Yes.
and the way that she looks at Hadass.
Yes.
She's hot for Hadass. Who
Right.
couldn't be? Amy Irving? Are you kidding
beat me to it. It doesn't have a crush on Amy Irving in this movie.
She's
I
hot
mean,
for Hadass, and and then Hadass is hot for her.
It's a
him
parade
and
of
her.
crushes, this film.
And then, but then,
And everyone's sort of like fighting their own instincts of being like, this is weird that I feel this way.
right. Even when Hadass thinks that Anshul is a man,
She still feels
weird because he's like kind of, he's kind of a twerp,
right.
and not Mandy Patinkin,
Right.
Avador. So
Patinkin's getting furious about how badly he wants to fuck Yentl. Like that's a lot of this movie is
it's a lot of like gay panic,
Yeah.
gay rejection. There's so much in there. So could you imagine if Barbara had maintained that sort of trans thing? You talk about a movie there were 700 things that shouldn't have worked.
Yes.
If you tried to pack that in there too in 1983, when trans visibility in culture was very minimal, oh my God, it would have just not. It would have just been crazy.
Yes, and I do think like the other movies like this, the other stories like this, let's say, right? Any movie that is hung up on someone sort of high concept, Some Like It Hot,
Yeah.
Mulan,
Tootsie.
There was another one I was just thinking of.
Some Shakespeare play.
Yeah. But where it's always sort of this like the ultimate reveal of it is kind of comedic.
Yeah.
There's
Preston
this
Sturges does this a lot.
farcical element of
Yes.
like what a silly misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Versus like this movie is really digging into the feelings of everybody.
It's an emotional
Yeah.
movie from
Yes.
minute one. It has that tenor, I feel like, right? That, it's got a slowness to it.
Yeah.
It's very like deliberate. And obviously she sings in her head her feelings,
Yes.
which is what a slow and deliberate emotional film would do.
Yeah.
Like there's a movie where they're dancing around.
Yeah.
Right. Which would have like this more manic, surreal musical energy.
Well, you just-
This doesn't.
No, you just imagine, and there's nothing to support this in any of the research that JJ pulled up. But I just find it impossible to imagine at no point does someone say to her, yeah, Barbara, good idea for a movie. Set it in college present day. Or, set it, find a different institution.
Right.
If you want to make the thing about someone who wants to learn and the women are restricted at the time or
Yeah.
whatever, don't make it Talmudic study. Don't make it this.
Right.
Don't make it that. Like, you
You
could
don't think
just.
Talmudic study is sexy?
Well, it's funny because that's the other thing is that Barbara's a proud Jew.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
she wanted to make this movie like that. But and it's funny because first of all, we haven't actually given the log line of the movie. She wants to study. She's not
Yes.
allowed because she's a woman, so she cuts off her hair. She assumes a male
Right.
identity.
As you said, her papa's sort of teaching her on the down low, and then once he passes
he
away,
dies.
she has no other avenue
He
for
goes
study.
Yoda style.
So she
right.
creates a persona, Yentl.
Yeah. No, Anshul.
I'm sorry. Yentl creates Anshul, the persona that will allow her to enter rabbinical study.
And when she does, on the road, she meets a nice boy
Mm-hmm.
named Avador, played by Mandy Patinkin, who is, Ben, what did you refer to him as?
A total smoke show.
Yes.
This
Yes.
entire film.
Yes.
Oh my
He's unbelievable.
God.
Yeah.
Very handsome man.
Always handsome to be
He's
clear.
supposed to be
Peak form.
He's
Yes.
engaged to the rich man's daughter, Hadass, played by Amy Irving, who's beautiful but not too worldly.
Uh-huh.
And he's forbidden to marry her because he has a brother who committed suicide, blah, blah, blah. So
What's the term they use that he has the dark eye on his soul?
something, yeah, there's some of this mumbo jumbo, like old
Yeah.
shtetl thing is like he's his family's cursed.
Everyone's always worried about the dang evil eye in the olden days.
so-
no matter what the culture is, they're like, that evil eye, though.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on.
So
It's
had
fun. Look at it. Stare into it.
Hadass has got to marry someone, and
Sure.
Avidor is so heartbroken, but he says, if someone must marry her, it must be my new best friend.
It's basically like
Anshul, because
Yes.
is my wingman, and I
you're
love
basically
him.
my brother, and it also feels like this sort of implication is like that's maybe the way to have like some sort of odd three-angled thing
Yeah.
going on.
And also, like Anshul's not too much of a threat.
Yes.
Like, it's not. I mean, I don't want to get too.
But that's
you
why
know.
I think cutting the previous wife is smart
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
his Avador's response in this is like, I'm never going to love anyone ever again. The only
Right.
consolation for me is my best friend marries her and we still hang out all the time.
Yeah, and I get to know about. He does. He's like, what was the wedding night like?
I just want to be adjacent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it all blows up in everybody's face. That's the end.
That's how it always goes. These things, it always has to end with
but-
but I lied to you.
but the
I'm
thing
mad. I'm over it.
about it's Jewish. There is a lot of Jewish stuff in there. They're in this yeshiva studying,
Yeah.
and it's like there are things in a setting that aren't necessarily that aren't imbued with that institution. Like, I don't know, what's a movie set anywhere? Like a movie about doctors. You know?
Right.
So like there's like medical stuff in there. Like,
Right.
I don't know, The Paper Chase is about
But
Harvard.
Right. This movie is about Judaism.
But I'm saying this movie fucking is Judaism.
Right.
This movie is got it going into molecules.
Yes.
I have a specific thing that I want to point out. It's my favorite scene in life. There's a moment. It's when it's Yentl as Anshel.
We're just
Barbra
on the
Streisand.
Hoffman minecart at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
just,
Like,
just hold on.
Hold on to your potatoes.
Hold on to your potatoes. They've just met. They met.
Yeah.
They were having soup, and now they're getting on the cart, and they're going to Beshev in Slovakia, whatever. And Anshel and Avador are starting to flirt, but they're both men. Ooh.
Yes.
But they love each other. They sense they intellectually they connect. There's fireworks.
Right.
And so they say, what do you want to do? We have time to kill on this card. What would you do? Play cards, play backgammon, just talk about chicks? No. What one of them says, I think it's Barbra says, would you like to discuss a page of Talmud?
Hey.
This is her come on.
Yeah.
Pick up
The
line,
Talmud,
sure.
by the way, for those listening, the Torah is the main book of Judaism. That's like the instructions.
Right.
The Talmud is like is 10,000 footnotes. And this is like all the special rules about how to be a good Jew.
Yes.
And so one of the other schmoes on the car goes, oh, no, not that kind of the Austin Pendleton-like character. Goes, oh, it's not Austin Pendleton, but he goes, oh,
It's
no.
Austin Penselton.
Yeah, he goes, oh, no, not the Talmud. And then so Avador goes, which page? Like, he's getting really turned on
okay.
now. He's really going to talk about the Talmud. And he goes, and he says, what? And she goes,
It's Alan Corduner, by the way.
Alan
From
Corduner.
Topsy Turvy and Such. It's
Yes,
the sort of
Austin-
squirrely glasses. Guy.
Austin Pendleton was busy, he couldn't make it. So she goes, whatever you're reading, like whatever you're reading the Talmud. And he goes, this is my favorite. I'll state the premise, you dispute it.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. They're assuming that no matter what topic they pick up, I'll state the premise, you dispute it. They're going to find a way to argue.
Yes.
Arguing is the purpose.
Yes.
They're intentionally going into it with the object of disagreeing.
Well, I think much in the same way that so much of the juice of this movie is Barbara's struggle to get it made matching with the character struggle 1-to-1. There is a similar juice to Mandy Patinkin, one of the most argumentative actors in history.
It's not just It's not just the way he argues. It's right. There's something in his eyes, in his posture. He's
Yes.
ready to argue.
Right.
Yes.
And that's his energy on screen. It's his energy in the process of working on things.
At least until now, he's become a TikTok grandpa.
He finally seems to have chilled out.
Yes. Yeah,
and the
yeah.
last 5 years does interviews where he's like, what the fuck was I on about?
He is a little bit self-aware about it. It's true. It's just funny how he's now fully a TikTok grandpa.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
No, he does seem to be finally somewhat self-aware about it, but yes, I think there is obviously whatever physical attraction that he will never allow himself to fully kind of admit he feels for Yentl in that physical form, but that clearly does exist. The thing that is undeniable to him that he is wrestling with is the intellectual antagonism, the struggle, right?
Yeah.
Like, as we're saying, Amy Irving is also a smoke show in this movie.
For sure,
Yes.
yeah.
But like her whole thing is she's been trained to be this very like
She serves soup. That's all she does.
it's Yentl's interior monologue song where she's like, look at what a perfect woman she is. She anticipates every need. She does everything perfectly. And like Patinkin, regardless of how she looks, how well she fits into the model of what a wife is supposed to be at that time, is always going to be more turned on by someone who gets to a fight about the Talmud with like that's the thing. Like she's speaking that love language, and he's like, well, this is what gets me on.
Yeah.
Is like
but
pushing back and
But
forth.
who would I marry in Yentl? That's a very tough question. There's so many eligible, there's so many wonderful,
Okay. Your question is embarrassment of riches.
yeah,
Okay.
It's like, Patinkin, well, there's appeal of that. He's so handsome. And right, you would many debates, and right, it would be and like Amy Irving, she's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Like Yentl, I don't know, Yentl, like you say, like everyone pretty magnetic in
She's
this
a
film, right?
firecracker.
You know, like
She's a firecracker.
She's got star quality.
Doesn't like
maybe I
this-
want Stephen Hill in my life. You know, he's got those Law and Order checks coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah, Papa, he seems like a
Papa?
good guy.
We all know the crazy stat that Amy Irving is one of only 3 people in history to get nominated for an Oscar and a Razzie for the same performance in the same year.
Wow.
That
Was
is
it for this movie?
So
Correct.
rude.
Let's
It
screw
is
the
so
Razzies.
rude. Now, the
Yeah.
other 2 examples
Yeah.
are Glenn Close in Hillbilly Elegy, which makes perfect sense.
That's sure. The
Yeah.
Razzies got that one right.
Yeah, and the
Oscar
Oscars
Swift,
got it
right,
wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even if I agree with the Razzies in that case, you're like, that is the kind of performance that makes sense registering on both scales.
Sure.
With both memberships.
Yeah,
right?
who would dislike her performance as Hadass? I don't get it.
That's what I don't
I
fucking
think the
get.
Razzies were just being mean.
They
to
didn't like
Barbra
Barbra.
Streisand.
They were
Yeah.
sexist.
The
Sexist
other
in
one was
interesting
James Coco for, what's the movie called?
Yeah, we talked about it
Coco.
on this podcast,
Yes.
right?
It's not called When I'm Laughing. It's
Only
something
When
like
I Laugh.
Only
Oh,
When I
I
Laugh.
remember that movie.
I've never seen that movie. James
Yeah.
Coco, I enjoy tremendously, is a very large
He's a
performer.
broad actor.
Yeah.
You could see him being a little bit of a cilantro, right? Where
Yes.
you're just like,
Yeah.
some people are won over by this, some people think it's a fucking ham
No,
sandwich.
but I
Yeah.
mean, Yentl also, Barbara was nominated for a Razzie.
Yes.
And it was also nominated for Worst Musical Score, which is like
Shut
insanely
The
mean.
fuck up.
But
Yeah,
this
it's so
is what
good.
I think about Yentl
Yes.
is I long knew it as something a little cringy. That
Right.
was sort
Yeah.
of its
No,
reputation.
yes.
to
I love the
my
80s segment. Can you
generation.
believe they made this fucking movie?
Right.
Yeah.
It was seen as like, oh yeah, one of Barbara's kind of like passion projects,
Yeah.
like Roll Eye. You know what I mean?
Well,
like
and if you describe this movie, it sounds like the silliest thing in the world.
for
There's
sure.
no
And it
way
sounds-
that isn't embarrassing for
right,
everyone
it sounds
involved.
like a vanity
There
project.
are. I mean, right now Yentl's sort of like, I don't want to say hip, but like, younger film people are like accepting it for
It's
what it
coming
is.
back around, I think. a
But
little
like
bit.
as
Yeah.
recently as 5-10 years ago,
Yes.
I personally shoved Yentl down the throats of some critics who like missed it and said, "Hey, I've always heard it was a joke." And I'm like,
Right.
I'll tell you after, like some pretty prominent people, and they're like, "Oh my god, they showed it at the Quad," and when the Quad first rebranded, and they're like, "Oh my god, that movie's really good." I was stunned. I always thought it was going to be a joke.
You were shoving it down their throat like it was a bag of Turkish raisins.
That's right. Can I get back to the cart though for a second? Because
Yes, I
Okay, and then I'm going to talk
Yes.
about Yentl.
Okay.
the argumentative aspect of it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's this sort of the old joke. You ask 3 Jews a question, you'll get 6 answers, right? I mean,
We have Barbara quote from, I believe, the book in the dossier that JJ pulled up, which is, you put 2 Jews in a room, you'll have 3 different opinions.
okay, great.
Classic.
So that's
Yes,
what I
sure.
love. That's in that scene on the cart.
Yes.
They're flirting, and they're flirting by arguing. Even though, here's the point I wanted to make earlier.
Mhm.
I'll state the premise, you dispute it. That's what Avidor says to Anshul. What if, when Avidor states the premise, Anshul agrees? She still has to dispute it because that's
Yes.
what. But she might actually agree. But she has to know to argue.
It's the nature of the sport.
It's the nature of the sport. Later, there's a dissolve, and they're deep in it. And Avidor says, "When does day become night?" And Anshul says, sundown. When is sundown? Sundown is when you can see the first 3 stars in the sky. That's not precise enough. Why? She shouts, "Why?" And everybody wakes up on
It's
the
like the
cart.
RoboCop app where I'm describing every edit.
I'm
I will
saying-
say, someone who's seen Yentl like 2.5 times, it is kind of impressive to like describe these specific moments. Yes, go ahead.
I just want to say, you want to know how a bunch of kids in the backyard can play Yentl? This is how you play Yentl.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
dispute the text.
Clearly.
And
You dispute the text.
I'm just saying that to me is very romantic. That these
Yeah.
are 2, you've never seen this in a movie before. 2 leading stars falling in love by arguing about when is sundown.
Did you have Yentl : dispute the text for the Atari 2600?
You're just like,
Dispute.
and then there's the
No.
the nude swimming scene where it's like hide behind tree, like he sees you, right? You have to,
I like that we're doing robot voice for Atari.
Well, it's like Atari. You know,
No,
there's
I'm
only
with
so
you. I
much.
started it.
Right,
We're on the
yeah,
same
yeah,
page.
You're gonna jump.
okay.
The Irving thing is so crazy to me just because, unlike those other 2 performances, her performance is so subtle, so restrained, so controlled. It's not like flashy. There's nothing embarrassing about it. And beyond that, you're just like, the fucking skill of this performance to sell us on, like, she's the one who really has to make the triangle function.
Right. Yeah.
And it's so reactive.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, you give her an Oscar nomination just for basically the technical challenge of like how much of this movie has to live in her eyes.
It is interesting that she got the nom. No, I mean, she's a talented actor.
But they were rude in a lot of other categories to this movie.
Right. And yes, maybe it was kind of a sort of, like, good job in this like somewhat difficult role. It's not a role you watch her in where you're like, when's she gonna like sing or have some big moment?
It's the quietest performance, but it's also the one that's quietly the trickiest.
It is
her big moment is when she confesses that she wouldn't mind having sex with Anshul.
Yeah.
And then she's growing to love him because he/she is just basically nice. I mean, that's like the big shocker.
Yes.
So anyway. Three dudes talking about Yentl.
Okay, look. So just to go back in time a little bit,
please. Oh yeah.
One of the
we're in year 2 of a 20-year development.
Many
process.
people rewrite this script. Over the years, one of them is Singer himself, Isaac Bashevis Singer, who says that his version is very different from what Barbra wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
In my script, Yentl does not stay on stage from beginning to end. You have to make room for others to have their say.
This was him, once the movie came out, taking some shots at, like, Barbra undid the movie with her own vanity and making it all about her.
Who else would you make it about?
I mean,
he throws that charge at her.
Yes.
The film gets moved over to First Artists, which is the company that Streisand and Paul Newman and Sidney Poitier create. Yes. As a sort of new United Artist.
Let's also clarify, at this point in time, right, she won't admit to herself that she wants to direct and also thinks that's going to make my life so much more difficult. Why even have that conversation, right?
Right.
She wants to make this as a straight drama without singing, directed by someone else.
Yeah, it is certainly for years what she's trying to do.
Of the movie.
Yeah.
Certainly at times, every time it gets redeveloped, there's always the question of, could you sing?
Sure.
That she's pushing back on. But her original idea was not.
Here's the crazy thing, though.
Yeah.
She creates a goddamn production company.
Yes.
Her first movie with them is A Star Is Born, which, yes, is not that well received, but is a huge hit.
Say it, David.
What?
It's a big, fat, big tittied hit.
Yes, it's that.
Someone recently reminded me that that's what I'm fucking quoting.
Right.
Robert Duvall in Network.
I thought her first production was For Pete's Sake with Michael Cera.
Her first production with First Artists is A Star Is Born. It's a huge hit, and so she's
not
like,
her first movie as a producer, her first production.
And she said she goes to First Artists. She's like, great, can I cash my check now and make Yentl? And still they're like, I don't know, you're Jewish shtetl girl. What is this?
Right.
You know, like they're still just like, this is not commercial.
You're too old. You're too famous.
Right.
You're too feminine. Why would we put you in a movie where you don't sing?
It's shtetl, by the way, the T, please.
Shtetl, I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's okay. My ancestors are
shtetl. Well, my ancestors from the fucking shtetl too.
I have ancestors too.
Are they from the shtetl?
I think so.
I mean, my ancestors came over around 1900, like many, obviously, because of the pogroms. And that's when this is set.
From West 50 shtetl is where I think.
Yeah, they were from the Carnegie Deli. No. My family's from Lithuania, though. This movie's set in Poland.
It's sort of a generic. That's all a big mishmash.
She does, things like The Main Event, with which is her last First Artist films. That studio goes defunct.
Chris Christopherson.
John Peters talks her into that movie.
The second Ryan O'Neal teaming.
Right.
Christopherson is Star Is Born.
Oh, duh. Yeah.
Right. That's Peters just being like, do the simplest fucking thing.
Do a What's Up Doc reunion.
Right.
Obviously, she's great in What's Up Doc.
Yes.
Right. And by then, it's like, no. She's offered Eyes of Laura Mars, which eventually Faye Dunaway does.
Yes.
And then she's in the 80s. She's free and easy. And she's like, I'm doing fucking Yentl.
Well, the other thing is this whole period of time where he's trying to convince her to do the safer movies. There's the one she does with Gene Hackman as well, where she gets paid like $4 million.
Never seen that.
Oh,
Me neither.
the one. Yeah.
I was just looking at it.
It's got a dopey name.
Because she's got, it's called All Night Long. She's got so few films in her filmography. Because
she has
busy
a day
doing
job.
other stuff. I know.
She's recording.
I'm not on her case about it. But then when she makes something like All Night Long or Nuts, especially once it's the 80s and it's like she really doesn't do, you're like, why this one? Like,
well, but Nuts is her like trying to flex something different, right? All Night Long and Main Event are like she's trying to push this Yentl thing up the hill, and Peters is like, You sign on for this, it's $4 million, easy money in a genre everyone wants to see you in.
Yeah.
Right.
They kept on, as she was struggling to get Yentl off the ground, offering her these alternative, like, this is simple.
Yeah.
And this is, right, once she makes Yentl, then she starts getting really, really selective about what she does. But the other thing, this whole point in time, I think it's at Wembley Stadium, they offered her...
Wembley.
I'm sorry, Wembley Stadium.
It's the national stadium of England.
They offered her $1 million to play there.
Peters is telling her, John Peters, her,
Yes.
longtime companion / business partner / rival, whatever, complicated relationship.
Hairstylist also.
He's like, forget Yentl.
Right.
Just go fucking play Wembley Stadium. They'll give you $1 million.
She says no. They come back with $2 million.
Yeah.
She says no. Then he's like, look, everyone thinks it's pretty cool you turn down Wembley. They'll pay you $10 million for a Vegas residency.
Sure.
And she's like, no. There is, when you're saying like she has this day job, there's also such a fascinating relationship between, I think, her resenting
Yeah.
the fact that her stardom feels inextricably tied to her ability as a singer,
Yeah.
as much as she loves singing and is proud of it.
Yeah.
She's like, I want to be able to do stuff as a film artist that isn't tied to that.
Well, this is the shocking revelation to me on page 440 of My Name is Barbra, the book.
Uh-huh.
She really never wanted to be a singer.
Right.
She wanted to be an actress.
Yes.
And she
Used it as kind of means to an end.
accidentally fell into musical theater, Mrs. Marmalstein. She did the jokey shtick. And then that led to Funny Girl. And she never really wanted to do it. When she first was singing in clubs, it was just because she couldn't get a job. And she was a decent enough singer that
She's
she
a pretty
could.
good singer.
Yeah,
Yes,
that they just
I
let her
love
do it.
these.
And, of course, she never had a singing lesson.
Right.
She went to one vocal coach once, stayed for 15 minutes, turned around and left.
Yeah.
Because the vocal coach was telling her, you're pronouncing the words wrong. And she's like, I'm pronouncing them the way they're pronounced.
Fiction.
Goodbye. And she left.
I mean,
So
I just...
the point
yes,
that her
yes.
whole everything she did in Hollywood was like, will you sing? And she's like, no, I don't want to. It wasn't that she didn't like singing, but it wasn't her goal. It
no,
was
and I think she...
it was a day job. In a way.
And it just so greatly eclipses everything else she does. I just
Right.
keep reading her in interviews, all the stuff we've been reading for the episodes, her using the term "sing for my supper" over and over again.
Yeah.
Where she's just like, Yentl, I held off for so long not wanting to make a musical, but eventually I realized I had to sing for my supper. Like this special weapon she has.
Yeah.
And even to some degree, like Prince of Tides agreeing to do an end credit song for it.
Yeah.
There's always this sort of final bargaining chip she has of just being
she
like,
could throw it down as a
This
as a
is
what if I
how-
sing? Will you let me do the fucking thing I want if I sing?
But it's sad because you want to be in her corner, but yet I do think Yentl the movie is so special because of the music.
Of course.
I don't think it would work. I mean, maybe it would work, but it wouldn't be as good.
So
The producers were right. The studio fat cats in this case were right. The music did need to be there.
The music gives this movie the exact right amount of heightened reality to get away with everything that on paper feels like it shouldn't.
I
work.
would agree. If she had made this as a straight drama at this age, it probably would be knobsy.
Yes, and I think if
It
she...
would be knobsian.
I also think if she had made probably what they would have preferred, which was an all-out singing and dancing full ensemble musical,
no.
that would have been a disaster.
Chaos.
She did find the exact right midpoint.
It's like almost as if Yentl is perfect.
It's almost as if Yentl
She
is
says God
perfect.
made her neither this
As
nor that.
Barbra says, music, this is a realistic fantasy. Having the music makes it a fantasy. Music is not real. People don't stop to sing. I mean, music is real, but okay.
Yeah.
I think it's a rumor.
I didn't want to make Polanski's Macbeth with people who have grubby, matted hair. This was a beautiful picture, a fairy tale picture. I wanted it to be a romantic film.
It is gorgeous.
Certainly,
Yeah.
right. I don't think people in the shtetl looked this good and autumnal and golden. It was like, it was dire times, right? A lot of mud.
Yes.
The shots of the city, which I think were shot in Prague, I mean, it all looks like $1 million. I mean, it's a very good. Who is it? Vilmos Zsigmond or somebody had to have shot it? Was it a?
It was shot by David Watkin, who is best known for, well, he worked with lots of people. He best known for winning the Oscar for Out of Africa. But he did Chariots of Fire, and he also did like a bunch of movies with like Ken Russell and
Best
Zeffirelli.
picture winners at this point.
Yeah, I mean, well, Out of Africa's a couple years from now. The worst movie ever.
Well, I don't
Never
know
seen
about
it.
that. It's
fucking boring.
Oh,
Do you
wow.
put it bottom 10 of Best Picture,
Well,
or
Let's find out.
is there stiff competition?
Cimarron is
David recently...
Cimarron stinks. And then that's the movie because I watched every, as you're going to say here, right? I watched every Best Picture winner.
Mhm.
You watch Cimarron, you're like, this is a piece of shit. Then you look it up and they're like, Hitler's favorite movie. The worst fucking thing a movie can
The
be
worst thing a
said
movie
about
could
it.
be. Yeah.
You're like, all right, well, fuck him.
Yeah.
What was the biggest surprise?
I
for you?
have Out of Africa in my bottom 10.
Okay.
Real? No, it's not that bad.
It's ninth from bottom. It's a snooze.
I mean, I haven't
looks
seen it in
nice,
a while,
you
but
know?
I remember finding it adventuresome. I mean, they're in Africa, for Christ's sake.
That's-
Well, I thought
it's
they were
really
out of
cool.
Africa.
Yeah, they're trying to, What was the biggest surprise is actually a great question. Because obviously, you watch like It Happened One Night or The Apartment or whatever. You're like,
Yeah.
I knew that one was good. I mean, boring now to say that How Green Was My Valley is fantastic,
Okay.
but it is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If you haven't seen that. I mean, it's sort of famous for
Yeah.
beating Citizen Kane, but
yeah,
it
but
rocks.
it's still
Yeah.
pretty damn good.
Mrs. Miniver is one of those movies that's like incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think people probably now mostly view as some kind of staid British period film. It's
sure.
like not at all. That movie
Like
is
the best years of my lives, best years
Well,
of our
that's
lives
a
is another one. If
masterpiece,
people
yeah.
don't know it, they might think the title is not very sexy, and it's
true,
but
true, and it's
wonderful.
long, and it's a
That
domestic
movie is
drama.
Fucking unbelievable.
The movie's
so good.
amazing.
Yeah, that's one of the best films ever made, in my
But
opinion. One of the great American movies.
Mrs. Miniver is just one of those movies where you're like, I gotta buy some war bonds, and it's like 2023.
It wins you over, sure.
and yeah,
Is Ziegfeld your bottom?
right at the bottom there is Around the World in 80 Days, which is truly a tough hang.
Yeah,
Like
I've
it's
seen
going to
parts
be
of it.
bad, and you've heard it's like 3 hours long and barely has a plot. It's just like,
Yeah.
let's land here, and it's like, hey, it's me, and you're like, it sucks.
It's like fifth tier Jackie Chan stunts. It's not even like
Isn't Arnold? That was Arnold's first governor role.
I
That
take
was-
it
yes,
back.
his
I'm
first-
sorry.
his last movie
Hitler's
before. Yeah.
Cimarron is bad, but Hitler's favorite movie was Cavalcade, which is another of those
Oh,
early
yeah,
winners
never
that
seen that
stinks.
one,
Yeah.
Great Ziegfeld stinks.
Yeah.
The Broadway melody kind of stinks. That's sort of like a
It's funny.
technical
It's funny
thing,
that
right.
I was thinking just the other day. I was going to listen to.
Green Book's pretty bad. it's down there. I mean,
It's
it's not
down
very good.
Oh, he eats the pizza. I mean, is Green Book?
Look, if the whole movie was about a guy eating
wait a
a
second.
pizza,
Wait a second. How's this guy eat this pizza? Normal style?
regular,
No,
One
no.
slice at a time.
No. He eats the whole pizza.
There are two ways I know to eat a pizza.
Yeah,
You
no,
take
you-
one slice and you fold it, or you
Yeah.
take a whole pie and you eat it flat. And I can't think of any other way in between those two.
He finds a way. Green Book finds a way. Green Book is not that great, but it's not that bad. Come
Well,
on.
the thing you
The
learn.
Artist, is that as bad as I remember?
I have it fairly low. I mean, the thing you learn when you watch Best Picture winners is there's 10 to 15 movies where you're like, this is bad,
Sure.
and then there's like a very solid chunk where you're like,
It's all right.
I can see what they saw in it.
Green Book also got 10% worse the second it won Best Picture.
But yeah,
Sure, they
that's
all
definitely not
do.
a tag it needed to wear.
Maybe I'm just psychotic, but I feel like once it wins something, I kind of hate it.
It's not a good
What, even
thing
like
for most
Lawrence of
movies'
Arabia?
legacies.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, now that we're those of us in the
Yeah.
biz that
What, so
cover
you hate
this,
Moonlight and Parasite and
kinda. I just like I'm
No
annoyed. by
Country
them.
for Old Men?
Well, that was still brilliant, but no, I haven't watched Moonlight since the one time I saw it, and
Gotta
now,
light it up.
if it had not won the Oscar, like La La Land didn't win the Oscar, I watched La La Land a second time. I never
Really?
watched Moonlight a second time.
I watch Moonlight a lot.
Moonlight's
Do you
good.
really?
I think you would find a lot to love.
I
in,
thought it was fine. You know what I like more? I like the Beale Street Who
Here it
Can't
goes.
Talk. That I
That-
thought was better than
That's
Moonlight.
quite a picture.
It's
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
First of all, you got this street. Why should it talk? No streets talk.
Well,
Why should no
also, they're
streets-
never on fucking Beale Street. It's
Oh
set in
my-
Harlem.
Yeah,
They're not
it could
in
be talking
Memphis.
all day long. They don't even know. They're nowhere near Beale Street.
I just
Okay,
want
look.
to. You called it the Beale Street Cannot Talk.
Is that what
Something
it's
like
called?
that.
Like I said, I
It's
haven't.
Beale Street.
It's
Could
a
Talk.
it's a good movie.
Barbara sees Yentl as a way to reckon with the loss of her father, Emmanuel, who died when she was a baby, when she was 15 months
I
old.
thought you were talking again.
She says, all these years, she's the best. I was just looking for daddy in a way. And then I realized I was never going to get him. It was only through Yentl that I had the chance to make myself a father. So that's how she's reckoning with this sort of gender switching of Yentl. Is like, this is a way for me to get in touch with my dad, who I essentially never knew.
Yeah.
I've been hesitating
It's the kind of thing Barbra Streisand would say.
whether or not to say this just because it's such a basic ass broad statement, but I stand by this. The dominant theme of Barbra Streisand's work, her life's work as an artist, is love, right? And you could say that about a lot of people, but I just think in like a pretty primal way, almost all of her work is about like reckoning with the desire to be loved. Obviously, so much of her work is about whether or not she's worthy of being loved, and these sort of like overarching passions that cannot actually be met or satisfied, you know?
Right.
And she talks so much about, this like formative thing of her father dying when she was so young.
Yeah. Her mother was never really kind to her.
No, and her stepfather
Was a
like
bit of a
didn't give her
jerk.
the time of day.
Yeah.
So she's this child who grows up with like no love reciprocation. The figure who she feels she could have gotten love from is gone from her life when she's basically too young to remember. And she says this like it's the reason she was so effective as a singer without having technical training, despite the fact that she's got good pipes, that she's born with it, whatever.
Sure.
Is that there was this like innate sense of longing she understood from a very young age that made her capable at 16 of singing like the great tragic love songs.
Yeah. And could connect to an audience and would do anything to please them.
Right. And like, A Star is Born is a movie about love between two people who should not be together. But you're like, well, this transcends logic, right?
Right.
And then like Yentl, she said, is the movie about her trying to like reckon with her love of her father who she didn't have, and Prince of Tides is her trying to reckon with the love for her mother who was there but she couldn't access.
Yeah.
And then Mirror Has Two Faces is the movie about her being like, can someone please love me?
Right.
And also, I mean, she wasn't, I don't know if she was officially a producer, but she was very involved in the story development on The Way We Were also.
Yes.
I mean,
No,
I mean,
another
she's got a
example.
heavy hand in many
Heavy
of her
hand.
non-directed
Right.
films.
But
yes.
most of them do boil down to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she should make a different kind of movie about, I don't know, like a bunch of jewel thieves or something cool.
What if a
Uh,
book were green?
Yeah. So
Is the last thing she did the one with Seth Rogen?
yes,
Yeah, which rules.
which is a good movie.
It's
Have you
not
seen that
bad.
movie?
Oh, it's funny.
She's
Yeah, I
so
like it.
fucking good.
Well,
man.
It's funny.
she's a A-list talent,
Yeah,
and
sure.
even if she's in like kind of a nothing
I
movie.
say this on the
What-
record. I
what-
think she's a good movie star.
What year did the album Guilty come out? That was a huge,
I do remember that.
huge
I feel like
hit.
that was the 90s.
That
that was her
Uh,
popular.
no,
album?
It was with
no.
Barry Gibb.
Barry Gibb.
Oh no, I'm sorry. It was the 80s.
Yeah, was it before
1980.
Yentl or after?
Before.
Okay, so this is key, and I think this plays into it. I was like, I'm a little older than you, guys. So I was around when the Barry Gibb collaboration album. Yeah, it was as big. Maybe it's just because I grew up in a Jewish community in New Jersey, but it was as big as Taylor Swift.
Sure.
It was, I mean, it was everywhere. Every time you turn on the radio, everybody had the record, everybody had the tape. Constant. The two songs, Woman in Love, and then the title track, Guilty, were just ubiquitous. You couldn't escape them. And they were, and it's good pop. It's good pop with a bossa nova beat. It was a little hip for Barbra. She wasn't singing show tunes. She wasn't doing quasi-classical stuff. It was pop music of the era, like a Lionel Richie
To
type
be clear,
thing.
it's a very odd album because it's a Barbra Streisand album, and almost all the tracks on it are just her. Barry Gibb is on 2 tracks. He wrote all the songs and produced it, and is thus on the cover hugging her. Like what? Like imagine if Steve Albini was like on the cover of In Utero, like hugging the bed. Like it's like this weird thing where he's like, I'm everywhere in this album, but
Yeah.
it's her album.
I mean, David, is it that different from Mark Ronson or DJ Khaled, who both basically have the same career?
huge
Oh,
talents. What do you mean? They
the album
point
is
at
my
other
name.
talented
Right.
people.
the cover is my face.
But
Other
they-
people sing
But that's the
every
thing.
single
But
song.
it's not
But it's not DJ
Barbra
Khaled.
Streisand and Barry Gibb.
it's
It's
just
Barbra Streisand Guilty, but here she is hugging Barry Gibb, and he's
Yeah.
all over it.
And in my memory, having not listened to the record in a long time, I thought he was on every song. It's
he's
just-
on
the
2
two
of
big
the
hits.
songs. He's on Guilty and What Kind of Fool.
Oh, What Kind of Fool? That's
What
right. That's
Kind
a
of
third
Fool?
hit. Oh my God. These, like I said, my
Look, this film-
aunts. Oh, you go to the aunt's house. The cousin. The album was always on 24/7.
It sold 15 million records.
Yeah. And it was
Which is a lot.
It was gigantic. Now, I guess what you had to say is when you grew up in the community,
Didn't win Album of the Year at the Grammys though.
Oh my God, what did?
Christopher Cross is Christopher Cross. The one with the flamingo.
Yeah, it's a good album, but that's a shonda. That's an anti-Semitic
That's
and anti, it's sexist.
Sure.
But I'll say this.
Like when you look at the 80s Grammy winners, you're like, these people were high on
I mean,
crack.
I have made this argument before. Is there any awards body that has less respect within its industry?
No, there isn't, but I still
We were just
sometimes
talking about there
marvel
being
at their choices.
like Best
yes.
Picture stinkers.
Yeah.
But no one talks about like, did the Grammys get it right that
Okay.
year?
Do you know that when the Grammys first started, album of the year, like of the first 5,
Yeah.
2 of them are comedy records.
Bob Newhart wins
Bob Newhart
2 times?
Button Down Mind of Bob Newhart won,
Yeah.
and then Vaughn Meter's The First
Right.
Family.
Yes.
And Vaughn Meter is mostly known today as the butt of a Lenny Bruce joke.
yes.
Because Vaughn Meter had one job. He was a
I mean,
John.
even that's stretching it. That he's well known for being part of
nobody
a Lenny Bruce.
I would have.
joke.
I mean, well known if
I
he's
don't know
known
if
at
that's
all.
blowing up TikTok.
I don't think. Well, no, the people out there listening right now who are like in their
We have
cars.
to get back to
You haven't
Yentl.
seen
All
the
you-
trend of like tweens mouthing along with the Lenny Bruce bit?
Wait. The kids on the podcast right now who download, it's like radio, but it's
Oh my
like
God. We have
but
to
it's-
get back to
wait,
Yentl.
so
we
I'm
have
sorry.
10 more years of
Wait,
Yentl
so
development.
I'm just
to
telling
get
you
through.
this. So Vaughn Meter
Yeah.
was a John F. Kennedy.
I'm very open. Yes.
But the
We
listeners
know who
don't
he
know.
is. Who cares?
You guys don't. The
I
people
do
at home
care.
don't know. The people at home don't know. Vaughn Meter in 1962 was the world's greatest John Kennedy impersonator. So he put out a record called The First Family, and it
Humongous
sold
hit.
a zillion copies.
Yeah, the biggest album.
Taylor Swift and Beyonce put together.
Yeah.
So and it was all he did was he pretended to be the president. He wasn't even that funny. He just pretended.
Look, he hitched
So-
his wagon to
yeah.
JFK.
So JFK
And
is
that
shot.
wagon got assassinated.
JFK gets killed.
this
Yes.
is true.
Society collapses. Lenny Bruce is his first gig after the assassination. He gets on stage at the nightclub, and he's known for being, irreverent and iconoclastic. He looks at the audience and goes, "Wow, Vaughn Meter is fucked."
It's a good joke.
That's an
Not only is
amazing
it,
joke.
it is also completely true. The guy's career was over in a day.
Bill Hader and Robert Siegel have been trying to make
Yes,
a Von Meter
'cause
movie
it's
that I always thought would be
fascinating.
incredible.
Is that true?
It's
Yes,
a fascinating
there's a
story.
script.
But like literally, it was like he probably got a call from his agent that day being like, well, your tour's canceled.
Yes.
Your next record isn't coming out.
Right.
You are fucked, my friend.
Right, and it's like it's beyond cancel culture because it's a thing that was so outside of anything he did, but he had no other work in his repertoire. He had no other bits, and it was like this guy went from top of the mountain, winning Grammys, best-selling album,
Yeah.
to tomorrow you are
Yeah,
unhireable.
he's working at a gas station.
Yeah,
Okay, so Yentl. All right, so she in the 80s, yes, she's going to sing. That will help it get made. She's going to connect with her father. John Peters says she's sitting cottage for her father. Sounds like something John Peters would say. I'm sure he tried to get an Iron Spider in the movie and was shut down.
yes.
Orion is Heaven's Gate, is a disaster,
Mhm.
right? Suddenly studios don't want to hear about movies that cost over $10 million. That was Heaven's Gate cost 14.
Let's also say quickly, at some point within this development process, when it's been so long trying to push this movie uphill, she shifts to, I guess I direct it and hire a younger actress to play Yentl.
Sure, right. She says at one point she takes her name off the script because she thinks that's actually hurting
Yes.
her chance of developing the movie with a studio because they think it's going to be crazy. She does All Night Long with Gene Hackman.
Peter's the
likes
person-
the script.
Yeah, easy payday. Peter's the person who's closest to her, is like the most loudly and critically repeating all the "you're too old, you're too feminine, you're too
Yeah.
famous, you can't get this off." And she shows up one day at their house dressed like a man, smoking a pipe. He thinks she's an intruder. He says, "I almost punched her in the jaw." And that's the one where he goes like, "Fuck it, I guess you could probably pull this off."
But she also basically said, I'm not making this with you. You don't believe in it.
I need
Like,
this
he's-
needs to
yeah.
be my
Yeah.
own personal expression. It can't be part of our thing.
She
Yeah.
finally gets United Artists to budget the movie about $15 million. I think it was actually ended up being made for about 12. Elaine May took a pass. A zillion other fucking Ted Allen, Jack Rosenthal, who wrote a movie called The Bar Mitzvah Boy, is brought in to co-write the screenplay. Apparently they fought all the time. I mean, this is always the story of Streisand. It's like so much collaboration, but so much fighting. Michel Legrand and the Bergmans come in to do the music. Okay, things are moving along. They shoot it in the Czech Republic. Number one choice for Avigdor.
Oh, I haven't gotten to this part in the book.
Dickie Gear
Richard Gere.
I could see it.
makes a
course.
tremendous
I
amount
could
of
see
sense.
it. I could see it.
She
I mean,
wanted a masculine.
Yeah, he's not
and
Jewish.
feminine
He's not Jewish, but
guy.
he actually
He
was.
is Jewish, is he not?
No, he's played Jewish though. He played Jewish in that movie Norman, I think it's called. He was great in
Why
it.
did I always think he was Jewish?
No, he's not.
Richard
but he would be
Gere,
good. He would be good.
Is a Methodist from
Wow.
Syracuse,
Wow.
New York.
Obviously, become a Buddhist.
Yeah, he's a righteous man, and we
Yes.
shouldn't be so hung up on labels, man.
No,
but he would be good. Sometimes you hear about alternate casting and you go, "What? That's crazy." I could see it. Richard
He
Gere.
was out on the idea of her directing, so he didn't
He
want
said
to
to
do
her,
it. He made
I
a lot of bad decisions after
Yeah.
American Gigolo too.
He said, "I would do it if it was you acting and someone else directing, or I do it if it was you directing and someone else acting, but I
Yeah.
don't trust you doing both."
Well, then she was right to fire him because you got to go all in on the
Yep.
train. You
Now-
can't go half-assed.
Patinkin had just played Che in Evita.
Yeah.
He'd won a Tony.
But has
on
not
the-
made
on
a
the
picture.
Broadway stage. He's not made a picture.
Mhm.
He said he was initially offended by certain parts of the story.
Like what?
He said he didn't like that the guys in the Shiva were watching girls bathing naked.
I wouldn't do that.
He wanted to wear a peyot and have his head shaved, like he wanted to look like a true Talmud student, and Barbra wasn't into it. She said he looked like Michelangelo, and she didn't mean the turtle.
Nope.
But I don't know. I mean, for one, it's like, yeah, motherfucker, you haven't made any movies. Like,
No.
take the role.
But this is what I'm saying. He was always just the most argumentative, strong-minded.
And so was she.
Yes.
So they were good for each other.
Yes.
I'm having an animal cracker.
These are the Zodiac animal crackers that are still in our office. Just don't eat it directly on my.
Why are they Zodiac? Are they
Because
like?
David Toski eats
Toski eats
the,
them.
Are they like?
Crinkle it right into the microphone,
Like
please.
it's like one Sagittarius.
put the bag inside the
No,
microphone.
it's like, am I gonna have a
in
Capricorn?
Zodiac, he eats the animal crackers.
Oh, all right. I'm gonna get one.
You're so
Jordan.
loud, Jordan.
Everyone's gonna unsubscribe.
Okay. So, I'm sorry. Henry Goldblatt. Sorry. Harold Goldblatt was supposed to be in this movie. I think maybe he was the yeshiva teacher. They do.
This is an incredible story. Yeah.
Right. They do, I guess, a reading. Is that what it is?
Doing
Griffin?
rehearsals,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're just doing rehearsals. At one point, he just smiles beatifically, according to Mandy Patinkin, at a table of Yentl actors, puts his head down, and dies.
Dies there on
Has
the
a
spot.
massive heart attack. Patinkin says if there was a heart surgeon in the room, he would not have survived. Basically, they were all just like, "Wow, it was time to go." I
Patinkin
guess.
also said, "That's how I want to go." Like it became, yeah.
Nice to see you all, and goodbye.
You hold court.
Yeah.
You
At a
give
table
a good
read.
show.
Yeah.
We should also just say at some point, right, as the thing's moving back and forth between does Barbra star, does she direct, is it a musical, is it not? When it's all finally coming together and she's like, you know what, I need to do this, it needs to be me, I need to play it, that's how it gets made, that's how I get control.
I'm sure.
Everyone's like, you're 40 now. And she's like, don't worry, I'll make the character 26. The jump comes from 16 to 26.
Hollywood does it all the
Movie
time,
magic.
usually with boys.
And she always historically did her own makeup, so she knew
buy
how to
it.
do
I mean,
it.
this is the thing.
It's fine. She's
In the
got it.
reality this movie creates, I completely buy
the
what
whole
they're selling.
thing is that the movie is so unreal anyway. My
Yeah.
God, it's back.
so far away.
The other thing that has been majorly reported on from her new book
Mhm.
is that she says she keeps fighting with Patinkin, and then eventually she's like, "Why are you so angry?" And
Is she fighting with Patinkin? Patinkin's fighting with everyone
he's
on
fighting
set.
with her. He's a confrontational man.
He's like, someone hands him a tissue
but
and he
that
yells
we
at them.
know about Mandy Patinkin.
We do know that.
What we don't know is what she said in this book, which is she finally confronts him, and he said,
Goes
"I
to his
thought we were
trailer.
going to have a more personal relationship.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to have an
Oh.
affair." And Barbra is like, "I would never have an affair with an actor I'm directing.
1,
You're married,
2,
and I'm not attracted to you."
3.
Rude. The third one, to be
The
clear.
third one
The other
sounds
two,
like a
I
fib,
hear
yeah.
you, Barb. I simply said I don't operate that way. Tears rolled down his cheeks, and I realized what this was really about. I wasn't paying enough attention to him as a man, not the kind of attention he wanted. And so basically she was like, "I'm going to fire you. I'm prepared to replace you.
Mhm.
I'm not going to let you destroy this." And he recommits himself, and they push through it, and he's wonderful in the film, but it's kind of a crazy story.
That is nuts.
She wanted
yeah.
Carol Kane for Hadass, which is a fun thought. I mean, Carol Kane, an Oscar nominee at this point,
listen,
right? Like, but
she-
very specific type.
At that time, though, she was already loony because she was already in like.
Carol Kane,
Taxi.
crazy? She doesn't have crazy vibes at all. What are you talking
No,
about?
I meant like a loony character.
Like a Looney Tune.
Yeah, like she was on Taxi already. I
Yeah.
don't mean like as a person. I mean she was already a screwy,
She thought the
comedian.
movie could benefit from having comedic energy and having someone where she was like, that's what she was looking for. Like, Carol Kane has such a funny voice.
Yeah, no,
Right.
It could lighten up the film.
disagree.
And the studio said you cannot have 3 Jewish leads.
Is
They
that
did.
what happened?
Correct.
Yeah.
They shut it down. And she was like, the movie's already so fucking Jewish. What is
Yeah, it's
one?
like, that's not really the straw that's going to break
Right,
the camel's
no.
back.
But Amy
Right.
Irving is Jewish.
Yes, but my guess is that
She was hot,
she was such a beautiful,
Yes.
like, they were like, all right, well.
and she was still married to Spielberg at the time.
No, they don't get married
No.
till years later.
Were they at least dating?
Yes.
So
'Cause
having
she was
Stevens-
supposed to be Willie Scott. She had tested for.
Yeah, she marries him, Spielberg, in 85.
Right.
She's supposed to be.
But
Willie,
they'd been
of course,
together
from
on and
Temple
off
too.
for almost a decade. They had a very long.
Because she's in
protracted-
Carrie, obviously.
Right, yeah.
She's in the
But
Fury.
she had tested for Marion and Raiders, and then I think they broke up. So then they got back together. Then she was supposed to play Willie Scott in Temple, and then she gets offered this, and Spielberg was like, "You're not going to say no to Streisand."
Wow, okay.
Yeah, which is fair. Vittorio Storaro was supposed to shoot the movie. I think that's where you got that from. He was the first choice. They couldn't afford him. So much of this production, I think, was like, we have to cut where we can because it's an expensive movie. But David Watkins,
he did a great job.
Did a nice job. She thought their styles aligned very well. And she only had 9 days to do musical rehearsals, apparently. The choreography of this film is simple. So
part of her contract on this movie is that the film went over budget or over schedule, came out of her salary directly, which it did. She was like, I'm just going to keep going. I'm fine to not make money on this movie.
She gives up Final Cut, which is big for her to do.
Huge. As someone who had Final Cut when she wasn't directing.
Exactly. And then when she's been in the editing room for a while, she gets this ultimatum of like, you've already gone $1 million over budget. You have to finish this film in like the next few weeks or else we're taking it away from you.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever, they figured it out. And then Yentl came out.
And then also Stephen Hill, isn't it?
He is. Yeah.
Stephen Hill was the first Mission Impossible before Peter Graves.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a funny story. He was fired from Mission Impossible because
he wouldn't work on the Sabbath.
He wouldn't work on the Sabbath. And when he got hired, he's like, look, I'm an Orthodox Jew. I'm not like one of these Hollywood Jews. I'm a hardcore Jew. I don't work on the Sabbath. From Friday night to Saturday night, I'm home praying and doing my thing. And Desi Lou was like, cool, man, you got it. And then he was doing it. It's like he was checking the watch. They'd be in the middle of a shot and be like, all right, guys, I'm out.
Right.
It's
And they'd be like, we thought you didn't mean it.
Right. It's exactly what
Even
happened.
though it was written into his contract.
Yeah. So he got fired.
After
and
the first season.
I feel like today that would be a lawsuit. I mean,
yes.
But he's great in that first season.
No, and he had like a protracted period of not working in film or television where he went back to theater and then was sort of revived around this period and had this crazy second life on Law and Order. It's also great in The Firm.
He's great in The Firm. He's a great actor.
Good
I mean, his whole thing in Law and Order was eventually you were like, Watterson would be like, all right, we got to take the case. And they go to this like ancient man fused to a chair. He's like, yeah, you should do it. And you're like, retire, Stephen, enough. Like, come on.
But he was like
But he was playing Morgenthau, like the real DA who really never did fucking retire.
106
Yeah,
years
he was
old,
a skeleton.
Well, he was like a Brando actor studio sort of
mumbly,
contemporary who then like
he split on his. He was fired from Mission Impossible, and then he split. He's like, I'm done acting. I want to be a. I think his main. He like.
I don't like this industry. I don't like.
I think he was a rabbi.
Yes.
At some point, he just like he left and then came back later.
Him being a mummified corpse 10 years past his due date on Law and Order rather. I'm just like, this guy didn't have like the 30 years that should have been the prime of his career.
Exactly.
Stephen Hill was allowed to be on Law and Order as long as he could.
Yeah.
Yes.
Be. I just remember at the end, the vibes were just a little sleepy.
The actor who plays Papa in this movie.
Yes, the actor who plays Papa is called Nemaya Persoff.
Who was similarly one of the first students of the at the actor studio.
Mm-hmm.
He also played.
He's also Papa Moskowitz.
Well, that's what I was about to say.
There are no cats. Does Papa Moskowitz make it to America?
I think so. I saw that he is in all the direct-to-video files as well.
How many of those are there?
He has this like
I don't
sort
know.
of
Bluth really hurt his brand with those. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm emotional about it. Like the fact that there were like 13,
I was rooting for Bluth.
13 Land Before Time.
Yeah.
It kind of made it seem junkier.
Yeah,
the originals are good.
Yeah, Bluth also hurt his reputation with some of the movies he put in theaters.
That's a fair point.
But yes,
he ruined his career because he made a Fakakta video game that you put a quarter into and you die.
sorry, go on.
0.2 seconds later.
What are you referring
Dragon's Lair?
Dragon's Lair.
Oh, yeah,
The most. Listen, I'm not particularly good at video games.
No, but it looks good.
It's so cool. I can barely play skee ball, but you give me a video game, it's very complicated. This one is really complicated. Even the real kids who know how to play video games can't play Dragon's Lair.
The name of this actor who plays Papa.
Nemaya. Sorry, I want
Nemaya.
kind of, yeah. Nemaya Persoff.
He similarly has this late period renaissance where he does this. He does American Tail. He's in Last Temptation of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Like he has this great like sort of final act of his career. And then like late 80s, he's like, my health is declining. I'm going to retire and enjoy my final years. He died a year ago.
Holy shit.
He lived until 102.
And yet his last credit is his last on-screen credit.
Yes.
is twins in
Yes.
1988.
He plays the doctor in Twins.
Sure.
Apparently, so in Angels in America, the Mike Nichols,
He's in the group of the Meryl
right.
Streep
There's a bunch of rabbis,
uncredited.
so but
Yeah.
that's more of a tip of the hat.
No, he has this like
Tip of the
robust.
yarmulke, I think is what you need to say.
He has this robust 80s and is like, okay, I know well enough.
Yeah.
Don't
mess. Don't
time to
mess.
leave, and then just lived another 20 years. And by his children's account, his final words were, "It's about damn time." Enough of this already.
Wow.
Oh boy.
But he is so good in this, and it's so important because it's like this is a limited screen time
Yeah.
performance
Yes.
that needs to like hang over the entire film in a very like unfussy, unmannered way.
Yeah.
There is just like such an integrity and warmth to him that you're like, yeah, I'm not going to forget this guy even when he hasn't been on screen in 2 hours.
Griffin, what's your favorite? What's your favorite scene in Yentl?
What's my
And
favorite?
you need to know that he can hear her
Yes.
and watch her fly at the end of the film.
My favorite scene. I do think the suit fitting is really funny.
The suit fitting is funny because it combines genuine pressure.
Yes.
Like you're actually quite tense in the scene with old Jewish tailors being like, I have to leave the room now for him to take his trousers off or whatever, which is
really
fun.
It's really funny and a good song.
A good song.
Tomorrow night.
Right. That scene encapsulates everything the movie is capable of doing all at once. I think the scene where she tries to talk Amy Irving out of sleeping with her
Yeah.
on their wedding night's incredibly
Something
good.
no
Yes.
human could actually do. Reject
That
Amy
scene is
Irving.
really, yes, it's
Yeah.
funny.
And let's
And yes, go ahead.
no, the fucking skinny dipping scene.
The skinny
Yeah.
dipping scene.
I was waiting for that
Her
one.
and Patinkin back to back in the bed. The first where she's like, Talmud says
Yeah,
we have to
Talmud
sleep back
says,
to back. Right. I like that scene
Yeah.
a lot. I mean, just Patinkin going full fucking Brando,
Yeah.
like when you disrespect the Torah, where it's just like this shouldn't work in this movie.
Have
Like
you
this,
seen-
like intensity.
Obviously, because it's the excerpt from the book about we just paraphrased Patinkin in the dressing room with the affair.
Yeah.
There's been a lot more talking about.
It's going to be season 5 of the show. They're going to do The Affair
Yes.
season 5. Patinkin and Yentl.
So it's the first affair that doesn't happen. Someone was recirculating. I think it's on the Blu-ray, which is out of print, very hard to find. The Twilight Time disc, but Barbra like keeps very active archives of everything.
Oh, yeah.
So her movie discs all have like
I have the
extensive
DVD.
rehearsals.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a clip that someone uploaded that was circulating around Twitter, which is Streisand directing Patinkin's performance during the take. It is this final scene of you disrespected the Talmud.
Yes. Right.
And Barbra in the take is going like tone down, tone down, tone
Right.
down.
Right. Which makes that would be my direction.
Right.
Would be like this is just not in line with the movie's tone.
But it's so fascinating because he is clearly like the more she's nudging his performance, the more energy it gives him.
Yes.
Wow.
And you just realize how attuned she was to sort of performance. And she talks about like, I actually loved acting and directing, the thing that most people thought would be so difficult to do at the same time, because it takes one actor off the board for me to care about, but also it allows me to internally direct scenes mid-take.
Right.
I think not often.
I think that's often frowned upon.
Yes.
Yes.
No, I don't think in most cases she's describing what she's doing in this clip where she's literally giving him notes while the camera's rolling.
Yeah.
Right.
I think she's talking more about I can adjust my performer as an actor and in real time.
Yeah. That's
Shift
probably
the
pretty
scene.
rare.
I just
Totally.
remember when I interviewed Clooney,
Yes.
one of the great actor-directors.
Yeah.
Never misses.
No.
Leatherheads.
It's a shame he hasn't directed a film in 20 years. He should get back to it because his track record's like perfect.
Well,
He's
what if
made
there were
one good
what if there
movie.
were boys and they were in a boat? I actually have heard it's not bad.
How could it be bad? Yeah, Bill Gass. Oh,
Well,
Yeah, somebody said that.
somebody's.
It'll have come out by now. But we
every-
can say that Bilga liked it.
Every Clooney directed film that gets announced, you go, how could that be bad?
Right.
That's
but
a layup.
I do remember asking him about, writing, actor, directing.
Sure.
And he was like, I really hate to, when I'm in a scene with an actor and I'm acting, then shift into I get it. It seems awkward or disrespectful or like some breach of protocol.
Yeah,
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 Sure.
Yeah, right? I don't know.
I mean, a lot of the great actor directors were doing comedy, which is like, you think about Chaplin. I mean, he knows what he wants out of it. And then a lot of the great actor directors have a smaller role,
Right.
or a support, like, I don't know, Sidney Pollack in Tootsie
I
is
mean,
perfect.
the
Well, you put Sidney Pollack in a movie, you're
Yeah.
winning.
Yeah.
I mean,
But I do
you
thi-
mentioned though at the end,
sorry,
because we're
yeah.
talking about the greatest scenes, and I do think,
Yeah, what's your answer?
well, I don't know, but I want to ask you guys this, because you've been talking about Barbra, and I'm sure you've talked in other episodes about Funny Girl.
Mhm.
The ending of Yentl, when she's singing her guts out on
Yeah.
a boat,
she's on the boat.
do you find that to be like even better because of Don't Rain on My Parade from Funny Girl?
What do you mean by even better?
You mean
Well, I mean, like, the scene is great, but
her having her be on a boat just kind of evokes it and thus
that she's on
improves
in
it?
front of a boat, not just singing, like
Sure.
singing with all capital letters in bold and underlined.
Yeah.
And she did this once before in Funny Girl where it was silly. She's, Don't Rain on My Parade.
Right.
I won Nikki Arnstein, the gambler. In this, it was, I'm coming to America to be myself because the old world sucks.
Singer hated the ending.
Yeah, well, he
like
was
this
not,
ending.
Yeah, he
Right.
was not always right.
He's always right. Oh, I'm always no. He really went after, like, I fucking hate her on the boat at the end because it's too optimistic. It's too, like,
Sure.
sort of pat, like, oh, don't worry, like, she doesn't have to marry Patinkin or Amy Irving. She can go to America where all people are free. Like, there's
Yes.
a little bit of like a kind of like, okay,
She'll direct.
I like it. Yeah, right. United Artists.
Yeah.
I like it because it's Barbra Streisand on a boat singing, like you're saying. Like,
Yeah, it's like
I'm just kind of like,
So that's
I'm
what
won
getting
over.
at. Yeah.
It does
Right.
feel a little like play the hits in a way I enjoy.
Yeah, it doesn't bother
Yeah.
me in the slightest.
She's-
But
Yeah.
I cannot deny that Yentl is cheesy.
No.
Or cheesy might not be
No,
the
but
word,
I
actually.
mean, this is what I find interesting
Somewhat-
about
somewhat-
Sentimental. It's
Yes.
it's
sentimental.
highly sentimental.
Yeah, the ending
Right.
of that movie, even when I was 8,
Yeah.
got me verklempt. And it's like
I think
embarrassing.
you're right that this movie's very sunny vision of her leaving the old country. She's going to have real freedom in America. She can do
Yeah.
anything she wants. I do think there's something intentional to, as you're saying, her repeating the iconography of one of her most famous musical numbers,
Yeah.
where it's like, well, when this boat docks, she's going to get to be Barbra Streisand. You know,
But it also
like she's fully kind of coming
I
to her
think
power.
it resonates a lot with American Jews. And I
Yes.
think, like, my grandparents, were really big into America because all 4 of them survived. Most of their relatives did not.
Yeah.
And when they got here, by and large, people did not want to kill them.
There are no cats.
So there were no
Street's
cats.
favorite cheese.
So, like, America was pretty hip. You could just, like, go to the
Yeah.
store and not worry about being killed for no reason. So it was, that sort of added yay America thing is kind of ridiculous. Like, there's still sexism in America when she lands, but it's just, I just feel it's a change that really is for the best. Also, what year did Neil Diamond and the Jazz Singer come out?
Oh yeah, film with no problems whatsoever. Definitely
It's got
no.
a
The
One-
same year, right?
It's got
That
one
film-
questionable scene. One questionable scene.
Calling that film questionable is very generous.
Oh, man.
1980.
Yeah, so that was in the mix too. That was a big movie. So that
Yeah,
we were
it
talking about
was.
movies where you watch your grandparents who were Jewish immigrants.
Mhm.
It was either Fiddler on the Roof
Sure.
or The Jazz Singer, and then finally Yentl. All had
Yes.
musical numbers.
Yes.
Some breaking news. Kimmel's back for the Oscars.
Yeah.
Hey,
Something like
Also, weird news. Destin Daniel Cretton leaving King Dynasty. That film seemed very stable.
I just think it's a little bit of a bad move for Marvel to get him off that movie. It's got to come out pretty soon.
did I just slip into a Marvel like portal and enter another dimension?
It
where
was
we're
just funny where they were like, what's happening is Destin Cretton will not be making the film. And I'm like, right, the film.
the film.
that will continue to exist. Yes.
Right. Right.
King's on the way, folks.
That's almost a rude way to make that announcement.
Right.
He stepped down as director.
Yeah, he stepped down as director of a project that doesn't exist.
Yeah, he stepped down because he pulled out the ladder. And you
like,
also
imagine if he was in the room
took a
being like,
wrecking ball to the
"Guys,
house.
Kang, this is it. I walk the streets and people yell at me, Kang! I can't wait to see more Kang! Do you think they're regretting the fact that when they introduced that fucking character, he got killed by a bunch of ants in his first appearance?
Yeah.
He gets swamped by ants. It's like, watch out for this guy. Thanos doesn't get like knocked over by a bunch of butterflies in his first appearance.
I think that's maybe number 50 on the list
yeah,
of things
there's
they're
a lot of
regretting right now.
regrets. Anyway,
Um,
Yentl.
The tone of this thing, we're talking
where
about
would
the-
Yentl fit in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Everywhere. What do you mean? She walked through every portal? You know?
What if it's Avengers, the Yentl Dynasty?
They're like, we're pivoting away from Kang. Barbra Streisand is joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Writing,
She should-
starring, directing, producing.
I mean,
Like,
well, listen.
and it's a Yentl movie.
What other Redford was in there?
Yeah,
Any other?
great question.
Has anybody else from a
Gould has yet to do a Marvel.
Patinkin has yet to do a Marvel, although on his TikTok he's frequently asked to remember superhero movies, and
Yes.
he's always like,
Chris Christopherson ever?
I don't know, Batman. Like Christopherson never did a. Well, he was in Blade. Christopherson.
Oh, Christopherson
pre
Blade.
MCU,
Yeah.
but still a comic book film.
There's that great thing in the
Has Dustin
Blade,
Hoffman?
you gotta go get the vampires. What?
Has Dustin Hoffman been in
Dustin
Marvel?
Hoffman's
No.
not really been welcome in like sort of
Modern-
big movies for quite a while.
Yes, he works in Italy mostly. now.
Redford's the only one.
I think.
Well, yeah, because when
Ryan
Redford was in the
O'Neal.
Marvel movies, it was pretty fucking weird.
It was
Yeah.
wild.
It was weird. He's like, "Hi, Nick Fury, how you doing?" And I was like, "Robert,
Please contain yourself.
go to the mountains.
His
Read your New York Times."
It's a
all
little bit
but certainly-
embarrassing.
All but certainly the last words Robert Redford ever will have uttered
Loki got
on
the
screen.
suitcase.
No, are Hail Hydra. Am I wrong about that?
Oh God.
Well, he's in Endgame.
Yeah, but he says Hail Hydra.
That's his last
I think
thing.
that's maybe I'm wrong
I think
about
it would be
this.
funnier if you said Loki got the suitcase.
Has he
And
really
then he
not
turned
been in
and he was
anything
like on
since
Disney Plus.
He does say it. What?
How many Marvel movies was Redford in?
Two.
He's
And
in
he hasn't been in anything since.
No,
Well,
that
his-
came out 6 months after Old Man and the Gun.
Old Man and the Gun was
That's a
like this
good movie.
beautiful, elegiac
That's
sort
a-
of goodbye to Robert
And everyone
Redford,
was
the
like, "This is your
icon.
final film," and he was like, "I don't know, we'll see."
And
And,
then
the answer
Endgame
was they
shows
had
up
to
and-
stay quiet about the fact that he was in Endgame.
Christ.
And
Oh,
Loki,
it's so
you know, like,
humiliating.
steals his ID
Loki.
card, and he's like, "Loki."
Yeah, no, he definitely does say Loki's got my suitcase, but I think
You know what? Though
I
it's
might be
show
wrong.
business.
I
Good,
think
you know what?
Hail
I-
Hydra's his last line.
I take it back. It's right. It's just
it's right. It's
that it
right.
should
and it's
be.
just.
No, I mean, let's start the movies, man. It's for fun.
I
It's
mean,
for
look, he's
entertainment,
probably
you know?
getting some fat checks.
It's-
I mean,
what does he need
fucking
for
got
money?
a credit in
I'm saying
Endgame.
these
That's
are
a big
entertainers.
movie.
Even Barbara, she's an
Yeah.
entertainer. She, you know, so
No, look, Marvel. Feige
just-
should go. You know what? I don't know what
Feige.
the fuck I'm doing. Full creative control over to Babs.
Barbara
Get her
would
off the
make.
bench.
Have you ever listened to the director's commentary track on What's Up, Doc?
Yeah.
Where it's mostly Peter Bogdanovich explaining the plot to Barbara, and she goes, "This is crazy. I don't understand what's happening." It's just her not getting the plot at all. Now,
Yeah.
granted, What's Up, Doc is a little silly. It's hard to follow
silly.
at times. Too many suitcases, but it's hilarious. She should totally direct Ant-Man 4. She will. Ugh, the ants, the disgusting.
I do think that Ant-Man 4 is the direction to go after the failure of Ant-Man 3,
Yeah,
and
with
Barbra
Barbara.
Streisand is the
Yeah,
woman
she should
to
sing.
fix the right
With
fix
was
the
it
ship.
Michelle Pfeiffer? They get along. They get the nails done.
They
It'd be
would.
I
terrific.
cannot imagine for 1 second that they would get along. You
How
are
could you
crazy.
say that? How could you
Those
say
are two
that?
incredibly strong. You have one of my favorite Michelle Pfeiffer stories ever.
Oh, I can't tell that story.
Oh
on the
God,
air.
I love that story. I tell that story to people all the
It's a
time.
little. I don't want to tell it. It's a
Okay,
little,
fair
should I tell it? It's nothing bad, right?
No, it's not bad at all. Do you
It's
know
a,
the story?
Well, it makes
I don't
me.
think so.
It makes me feel a little dumb.
Okay.
You know, Hoffman doesn't like to present
Makes
that
me
side of
laugh
himself.
so
I
much.
like to be kind of the guy who knows.
You're a high
Right.
status figure.
You're real suave.
All right, so what's her name? Michelle Pfeiffer is
Yeah.
doing promo for a motion picture that no one's heard of called The Family. Remember?
Oh, the Luc Besson,
Yeah.
De Niro,
Definitely a
mob
movie she
comedy.
wants to remember. Yeah.
So I go. I'm doing an interview with her in the corner suite of the Mandarin Oriental Hotel in Manhattan, which
Overlooks Central Park.
if you don't know, it's on the southwest corner of Central Park. It's probably one of the most expensive hotels in the city. Beautiful. She's on the 82nd floor. It's toward the end of the day, 4:30 p.m. I'm probably her last interview of a very long day promoting what I think most people would agree is a piece of dog shit movie. So I get into the suite, and it's a corner suite. So she's got she's like, picture like a diamond, like she's in the corner, a giant window behind her to the left, and she's in the vertex, right? But it's the end of the day, and so the sun is kind of setting, so she's backlit. So I see her as a silhouette. It's like a shot right out of Mildred Pierce or something, you know? And I go into the room, and she's a big star, and I like Michelle Pfeiffer. Who doesn't like
We
Michelle
all love
Pfeiffer?
Michelle Pfeiffer.
So I go in, and I'm trying to be a little fun before I sit down my iPhone and get my 7.5 minutes with her about what's it like shooting The Family with Luc Besson. So I go in, and I try to be like, oh, look at this view. This is incredible. And it is an incredible view. So I'm kind of like going behind her and kind of looking at the view. I'm like, hey, that you could see all the way to the Heckscher playground. You could see the whole thing here. It's so beautiful. And she's backlit, and it's quiet, and it's 4:30 p.m., end of the day, low energy.
Okay.
She needs an espresso.
Uh-huh.
So I say to her, oh man, the end of the day, we're almost done. Hey, it's so nice out. Maybe when you're done here, you can go take a walk in Central Park. It's so lovely. And she goes, I can't do that. I'm like, oh, what do you got something to do? Come on. It's so beautiful. I'll go take a walk. So she goes, I can't walk in Central Park. I would be recognized.
Right.
And it got so sad in there.
Right. Like the mood is, I just love the idea of Jordan being like, take a walk outside, beautiful day. And she's like, I could never do that.
Yeah.
No, they would see me.
It wasn't like she was not kidding around. Her heart was shattering because all she wanted to do was walk inside.
It was like Haley Joel Osment and AI talk about not being able to go in the pool.
But then don't you say to her in the story I tell people, then you're like, well, you could wear a baseball cap, sunglasses. You start giving her advice and she's like, they always recognize me.
I'm such an idiot.
I had heard this story before.
It's so funny.
Such a moron.
Just the idea of you, Pfeiffer's in like her 60s and you're offering her notes on how to avoid like
I can't
paparazzi.
hide these eyes.
Yeah, right.
I said something like,
There are no lenses big enough.
I said, wear a hood. Wear a hood, wear a hat, wear sunglasses. And I said, New Yorkers are cool. They're going to leave you alone.
No.
And she's like, I can't do it. And she was sobbing practically.
Right. You had hit the hardest nerve. Yes.
Yeah.
You had blown it.
I had ruined it. And then I'm like, so Luc Besson, what a visionary.
She's like, no, he seems like a weird piece of shit.
Here's a point I want to make about Yentl that I've been attempting to make for 15 minutes.
Please go ahead.
You were saying it's a cheesy movie.
Yeah,
but
or sentimental, I liked, whatever.
But
yeah.
I do think tonally, I mean, we're talking about this sort of odd picture book version of this story, right? Where like the music, which is mostly interior monologue,
Almost entirely.
if she is singing it on screen, she's singing it to no one else on
herself.
screen.
Yes.
And she's the only character who sings,
She sure
which is a very interesting take and a thing that you watch this and you go like, huh, that's not a device other movies
I was about to
use.
say, are there movies that do that?
But it's a really interesting storytelling device.
It is. It shouldn't really work.
No.
But, okay, what's your point? Sorry.
But I do think there's something to, as much as she's saying, I didn't want to make the Polanski Macbeth version of this movie. This film does feel like it exists in a grittier, more visceral world than a lot of other musicals, a lot of other films in this sort of fable pitch. You watch the opening of this, and it does have that kind of like Heaven's Gate, like, holy shit, they had to build a whole fucking
Right.
town.
There's a lot of
This
money
is,
on
like,
screen.
endless,
Quickly.
right?
Yeah.
A lot of
Yes.
horses and carriages. And you
Right.
could like a circumcision just takes a little bit off the top.
Yeah.
You could turn this into a non-musical in just a few cuts.
And this is not a good example, right? I'm not a good comparison
Hollywood
point.
producers are like moles. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. This is not a good comparison point, but I think often movies that are this aggressively earnest, especially when they involve, like, they are musicals, but they're not musical comedies. There's nothing to kind of undercut it. They, like, protect themselves from the earnestness by going all the way in and going, like, we're going so big. We're pitching to the cheap seats. We're
Right.
going so, like,
Embrace the
aggressively-
unreality.
like
yes.
the Greatest Showman or something like
Greatest
that.
Showman is the exact example I was about to throw out, where you watch that movie and you're like, I can't handle this fucking thing. And it wears you down. But even when it wears you down, you're like, I mean, but this is like corny cheeseball bullshit.
Yeah, you love it.
All the emotions are pitched at a 20, right?
Yeah.
And I do think there's like this film is aggressively, nakedly earnest, but it is doing so in a very kind of like focused, serious-minded way. Even when it's doing the sort of like comedy of misunderstandings, it's pitched at like a pretty low decibel, where there's such a confidence to this movie not going for bigger sweeping numbers, bigger
Dancing.
crying scenes,
Yes, sure.
bigger comedy of misunderstanding, hijinks shit, where you're just like, she was so committed to making this the exact way she wanted to the point where she avoided making the version of the film that maybe would have been a little more accessible to audiences in the emotions being a little bit louder.
Yeah, if she had pitched in 1969 or whatever, like
Right.
it's a full-blown musical with dancing.
Yes.
I'm the star.
Yeah,
yes.
and it's a some like it hot comedy. But no,
Right.
she wanted to make a film about sexism and
Yes,
Judaism.
and she like takes the themes of it very seriously. She takes the emotions of the characters very seriously. She
Yes.
takes the chemistry between them and their longing and their feelings, them wrestling with it very seriously. And for how much this movie does, or at least for a long time did have a reputation as like this very bizarre, silly vanity project. How did they ever make that as a movie? You watch it now, and it's so much less silly than you would imagine it being.
Right. Yeah.
You're totally right. Yes.
For how much
that's-
she's not trying to like make it a kitchen sink drama,
And also, like-
she understands the right amount of cheese to put in there.
the quote unquote silliness is more, how you would describe the movie to someone.
Yeah,
Right.
the
It
fact that it exists
feels-
at all, that she's a 40-year-old, that
Right.
she's trying to play a young girl. But
It feels like on the level.
It's
in
like
a
the
way.
most sober version of these elements put together you could imagine. In
Yeah,
a certain
not-
way.
like there
way.
aren't too many shots like of herself looking, there aren't like she makes herself look, I don't want to say she makes herself look unglamorous because Barbara would never do that.
It's a big thing in the dossier. She obviously needs to achieve a very specific look in this
Yeah.
movie. And
she makes herself the schlemiel. She's the butt of the joke, but
Yes.
still is Barbara.
both Streisand and Amy Irving said that she kind of transferred all that energy over to Amy Irving,
Mm.
where she was just like, well, this is a movie where I can't be too worried about if I look beautiful because I need to look in a very specific way.
Yeah.
And she was like, she would just fuss over Amy Irving incessantly,
Yeah, makes
which Amy
sense.
Irving loved because she was just like, I've never gotten this much sort of like hands-on attention from a director.
Yeah.
And then said that basically transmuted into me being like, I feel like I'm in love with her.
Yeah.
So like she's fostering an energy that actually translates into the chemistry of the movie.
yeah.
Of Barbara just being like, you're my little doll. I'm going to light you perfectly. I'm going to make you up perfectly. I'm going to like wait on you hand and foot.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it shouldn't work.
It shouldn't.
And the first time I saw this movie, I was watching it thinking I was about to watch a movie that famously didn't work.
Right.
I thought of this as a film that, like, yes, it did reasonably well because Barbra Streisand is famous,
Mhm.
but it's a bit of a sort of like, especially us as Jews, we're sort of like, ugh, Yentl. I mean, Jesus
Right.
Christ.
Yeah,
like,
it's a
you
little
know,
bit of an inside
right,
joke.
like, hey, baby, and then I watch it and look, you read Pauline. Have you ever read Pauline Kael's review of this film?
Yes.
She was very pro Streisand generally,
Mhm.
but she was sort of on what worked about this movie in a way that I feel like few critics at the time were. I feel like critics at the time were mostly dismissive of Yentl.
It
A
was
little,
pretty
yeah.
dismissive. I mean, it was beloved by some, but it was still dismissed.
She's basically like, the movie's funny, it's delicate, and it's intense.
Delicate's
like,
a really good word.
it shouldn't be able to do all those
Yes.
things at the same time, especially given that it's this kind of like glowing period piece, right?
Right.
Like it's not some work of realism or whatever. And like, the keeping of the balance is why Yentl works. And it's why Patinkin can yell.
Yes.
Like, because that feels of a piece with his character, and the movie feels able to sort of switch balances without it like fucking anything up, if that makes sense.
Which,
like,
look, we'll get to it next week, but like Prince of Tides for me is a movie that I find fascinating, but I don't think totally nails the balance of everything it's trying to do. Whereas this movie, I'm like, this is an even more difficult balance, and
Yeah.
like delicate is the word where I'm like, she's able
Prince,
to hold
you're right.
all these
Prince
things.
of Tides, when it switches plots, you're like, hold on,
Right.
and it keeps doing that, and you never quite. But like,
And you have performances in totally different keys
her
and
grasp on
tones.
Yentl,
Yeah.
as someone who had obviously been trying to make the movie for so damn long, feels more secure.
Yes.
In Prince of Tides, it more feels like she's barging into someone else's movie, but kind of in a fun way.
Do you know this thing about her editing process?
I don't know.
So this is like a point in time where you're still cutting on film, which means you're not able to sort of be like, let's try like 4 different versions of a scene and like save them as different files on Final Cut, and then go back and forth and see
No,
which one looks
yeah.
better. You have to physically tape the things together.
Sure
So
do.
in order to try a different version, you have to physically dismantle it. And she would set up home video cameras in the editing suite so they would construct a scene or an entire, like work print
Reel.
of the movie
Yeah, right. Yeah,
in one way, film it, and then be like, great, deconstruct it, try something new.
right.
So that she would have these like editing records of all the different versions
Wow.
because she is very detail oriented,
She's
very meticulous,
Yeah,
but was just like, I won't know if I found what I'm looking for until I see 40 different versions of it. And I'm trying to like get myself out of the first instinct of it.
Wow.
And this feels like a movie where like, yeah, at times Prince of Tides feels like maybe not all of these things are
Right,
harmonizing.
but they might have gotten there
No.
eventually.
maybe.
I like
I
that
also
movie.
kind of like how I like
do too.
it
It's-
for its atonal qualities.
But this is a movie where you're just like, she somehow got the balance right on fucking everything.
Another thing I really like about Yentl is this sort of
is how good she is devoted she is to her studies.
Yes, and also just the fact that it does seem a little bit magical realism. Like it's a contained world. They only meet Jews.
Yes.
There's no Gentiles.
Yes.
Like when they stop at the first scene, she leaves her little shtetl and goes to the city and stops to get lunch, and she meets a bunch of rabbinical students. Like there's no Cossack, like in Fiddler on the Roof.
Right.
There's always the Cossacks
Fucking Cossacks.
that are
and
causing
in American
trouble.
Tale, except they're cats.
Except they're cats. And but there's
Thought
no
there were no cats in America.
No,
there's
but they're
none
in
of-
fucking the start of the movie.
there's no I don't even want to call it a threat. Just to pierce
Yeah,
the bubble.
this
it's
is
a
not-
totally it's a totally a locked system.
Well, and also you think about like, Some Like It Hot, Mulan, Tootsie, the other one I'm fucking forgetting, Victoria to a certain
Oh,
extent.
you mean sort of gender bending?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
But a lot of those, there's this aspect of like the person becomes such an important figure that there are the interpersonal relationships that are going to be damaged when the truth comes out, but also like there's a giant house of cards that has gotten out of control that's going to collapse, right? And this movie, the stakes basically stay within this triangle
I love
Yeah.
triangle.
by
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
large. There's not the like, oh, a TV show is going to get canceled. They're going to lose the war.
Yeah, no,
you know?
the village will move on after the scandal is done. It's
Right.
not a big deal. It's a big deal to them,
Yeah.
but it's a big deal to a handful of people.
One
Yes.
more thing from Pauline Kael's review.
Please.
She says when Streisand is playing a yeshiva boy, she's a wonderful, giddy little shrimp.
I mean, I like that. And I wish someone would say that about me.
You are a wonderful, giddy little shrimp.
David, thank you. That's the kindest thing that's ever been said to me. I've been
Giddy
waiting my
old
whole
shrimp.
life to hear it.
Yeah.
Wonderful, giddy little shrimp.
It's a shellfish. It's not kosher. The scene when they go to get like cinnamon buns or something at one point in the movie. It's during a montage.
They go to Cinnabon.
Yeah, they go to
Yeah.
Cinnabon. They go
go
to
to
the
the
Mall of
airport.
America.
Go to Newark.
the Prague Cinnabon.
Yeah.
It's just a great little, like you say, the wonderful little shrimp. I mean, there's a scene of her just looking. So it's Avador is like, I love this my new best pal. It's
Yeah.
also like my little brother. You know,
I have
Sure.
no objection to her in the role as Yentl. Like I truly doesn't bother me in the slightest.
No, and I think she also creates a film world around her where you absolutely buy everyone accepts her as this person.
Patinkin being this fucking unit helps. Like
Yes.
this just like overflowing with energy, masculine energy,
Yeah.
like hairy and just like it's towering over her. Like it helps emphasize her sort of youth,
Well, and
her
also,
relevance.
by the way, I'll make sure we post this clip on our social media when the episode comes out. But the clip I'm talking about, that's her directing Patinkin mid-scene, right?
Yeah.
I reduced it, made it sound like it's her just saying, like, tone it down, right? But she's really trying to, like, harness his energy and just redirect it in different ways. And she's going line by line. And the vibe I've gotten from hearing about other actors working with her is like, when she's directing a performance internally within a scene, within a take, it's just by the choices she's making as an actor against them. She's not usually in the middle of a scene breaking reality down and noting them. But I also think maybe that's the way, with the nature of the relationship and the dynamic as it had been set up with Patinkin at that point, there needed to be that needling in order to get the thing flowing.
Right. It feeds the performance.
But
in
it's
don't most
meta
actors
ways.
hate being
Yes.
directed, let alone by your scene partner?
Correct.
Like, it's amazing that he didn't storm off the set.
There's a category of people like fucking David O. Russell who's famous for doing that during every take, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
But
that guy's
but there's
really chill
to
about
some degree, yes, there's something Barbara understood about, like, much like these two characters together, the tension, the combativeness is kind of the juice
Yeah.
that needs to be harnessed. And her direction of him is sort of just saying, like, it's less of the anger, it's more of this, you know? Like amplify this a little bit. Like, when is it aggressive and when is it defensive and when is
Yeah.
it whatever? She's not telling him the way he's doing is wrong, but she's sort of trying to do like energy shifting. And there's the quote in here in the dossier. Let me find it. So she, like 10, 20 years later, he's got an album and he asked her to write the liner notes for the back of the
Oh,
album.
the Mama Lotion album.
Yes, I think so, right?
It's all
I
in
was not going to
Yiddish.
say that quickly.
It might have been not. Maybe it's not Mama
Yes.
Lotion, but it's a hell of a record.
But he asked her to write the notes for the back cover of the album, and she responds, "Mandy, you put me through hell. I can't write these notes for you. I'm sorry, but I just can't do it. Why did you give me such a hard time?" And he said, "Well, I was scared." Really? And then her line is, Barbara, I mean, in the book, "I guess people have different ways of reacting to fear.
Yes.
I was scared too, but it made me quieter. I listened more intently, but it was nice to hear the truth finally. And I said, I didn't know you were scared because you hid it so well. And then you were so rude to everybody." But I do think that's such a nice, like, encapsulation of what makes their energy in this film so interesting, is as much as Barbara is like thought of as being a diva, you don't hear her stories about like screaming,
No,
stomping,
things,
throwing shit.
Sure.
No,
It's
no,
just
no, no, no.
meticulous
Yeah, asking
obsessiveness,
questions.
control. And she is like, she was on Stern recently, did a really fucking good interview with him. And she was saying, like, I'm so lazy. And he's like, what are you talking about? You're Barbra Streisand. And she's like, it's the reason I've done less and less projects as the decades have gone on. I've worked fewer and fewer on fewer and fewer things with more and more time in between each project. Because, like, if I'm in the work, I'm so deeply in the work, I have no throttle. And so when I'm not working, I really enjoy doing fucking nothing. You know?
She likes having ice cream with Jim Browan.
Right. Whereas like Patinkin is very like, it's combative.
For basically his whole
Yes.
career. So we need to just anything else we want to say about Yentl before we play the box office game, because we are running out.
Oh, we're running low.
of time.
I think,
but like,
what to
yeah,
say, it's
we've
it was
sort
an
of hit it from every
important
direction.
movie,
Yeah.
and I like it a lot. And I do think if anybody,
I more meant any scenes in particular
No, I
you'd
just-
thought about, but it is an important movie, and I do like it a lot. That is,
I think it rolls.
noting.
I feel like if
It
anybody,
does kind of just rule.
It kind of just rules. Yentl just kind of
there
rules.
might be people. I mean, if they've listened this far, they
Sure.
probably have watched it. But there might be people who are fans of this podcast.
Yeah.
And listeners to this podcast are enlightened people. But there are people who might say, Yentl, that's that Barbra Streisand picture.
Yeah.
Who wants to see it? Go see this movie. It's really good.
I highly recommend giving it a watch, even if you are not a musical person. And I know some of our listeners are allergic. But I think this film is just different than when people think it is, where even if you don't like it, I think you will respect it more than you would imagine.
Yes, I think that it plays incredibly well now.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a cheesier time and it felt, I don't know what.
Let's get into the awards legacy.
Yeah, like the film comes out in November 1983.
Mhm.
It was a success.
Yeah.
More than doubled its budget. Made about 40 million domestically.
Mhm.
Got some good reviews. Pauline Kael probably the most.
Mhm.
But
It was in the top 20 highest grossing films of the year,
yes,
which was a lower bar at that
Maslin-
time, but yeah.
Maslin sort of slammed it in the Times, and Streisand said that destroyed her.
Well,
Now,
Streisand's line was, I've spent 20 years thinking about this. How long did she spend thinking about my movie? Something
That's
like that.
In a way, awesome. It also like makes me feel like I've
it is
picked the
what it
wrong
is.
career. I mean,
look,
like I kind of want to jump off a bridge when I
So-
hear that, but she's right.
as we've mentioned several times, Singer is sort of publicly critical of the film, so
Yeah,
that's not
There
really
were some
helping.
haymakers in the press.
Which is not great news.
But this is a movie people have their knives out for and are like, this is going to be your folly. We're going to enjoy watching her stumble. And then the Globes welcome it really warmly. Now, the Globe's an upstanding organization with perfect taste, a lot of integrity.
So they gave it best musical comedy picture, and they gave her best director.
She won Best Director. She was the first
that
woman
happens. Go ahead.
to win the Golden Globe for Best Director. And it
Right.
felt like a statement of the Globes are doing this to set a precedent of her being taken seriously for the rest of this season. We're going to have a woman. At this point, Lena Wertmüller is the only woman who has been nominated.
Wow.
Correct, because
They
there's not another one until Jane
They
Campion.
dissed Leni Riefenstahl, huh? That's terrible.
Yes. No, Sofia Coppola.
That's what,
Later. That's talking later.
She was nominated
Oh,
for best director.
I'm sorry. First Jane Campion. I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Do you realize that the Globes don't give their director trophy to Catherine Bigelow?
No, who'd they give it to?
Cameron.
Sure. Well,
So it's Barbara wins, and then there isn't another woman winning until Chloe Zhao.
Globes are a great organization.
Perfect organization.
So yes, so she wins those Globes in January 1984. February 1984, the film just gets 5 Oscar nominations,
Uh-huh.
none for Barbra Streisand. She says it showed the sexism. It's so transparent. I would say it's more transparent with Prince of Tides, but then I also rant on that episode, as I remember, about like, look, there's 5 slots. This is hard.
What's
You
More
know?
transparent on Prince of Tides only because
They're
they
giving it Best Picture.
welcomed
like,
that movie so warmly in
Right.
all other areas.
Yeah, Billy Crystal made a nice joke
did.
about
Well,
that.
he
Wait,
likes
who-
to make that
who,
joke.
This is the
uh,
better directorial achievement, though. If you're
For sure.
singling out what
There's
she
nothing-
did as a
yeah, oh my
director,
God.
I would agree. Now I'm looking at the nominees.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, who got nominated? And
This
I'll
is
tell you who
Brooks
should
wins this year.
James L. Brooks wins for Terms of Endearment.
Uh-huh.
have. Good movie. Yeah.
Mike Nichols for Silkwood.
Good movie, but he's probably already been nominated a bunch of times.
He has, and that's not a Best Picture nominee, so he's sneaking in.
Mm.
Bruce Beresford for Tender Mercies.
A movie
Good
I
movie.
fucking love.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
movie.
which is a Best Picture nominee.
Right.
Peter Yates for The Dresser, another Best Picture nominee.
Okay.
And Peter Yates is a good director.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to shit all over PD
you
here,
can
but
mix. So far, we've got Nichols and Yates can both take a hike.
and
for
then
Yentl.
some fucking absolute hack called Ingmar Bergman for some piece of shit called Fanny and
Well, also,
Alexander.
Well, all right.
I love Tender Mercies, but like Barbara being beaten to a slot by Bruce Beresford is a little odd considering her stature in the industry. Although it does
but
feel
I
like
think
a
some
bit
people
of
just
a,
didn't like this movie.
yes,
Yeah.
and
What-
also
what
a
ultimately
little
won
of
for
a SmackDown.
What won Best Director?
James L. Brooks.
Brooks wins. The two directors getting snubbed who are not Streisand, the two Best Picture nominees that are not getting a director nom are Big Chill, Larry Kasdan, and The Right Stuff, Philip Kaufman, which is kind of a
I
crazy
didn't get a
snub.
nomination.
Jeez.
Me
I mean-
and Philip both got snubbed.
I gotta say,
I mean, The Right Stuff
it's
is like
probably
a
just as
very
good as
well
Yentl, just
made
as good
film.
as Yentl.
Yeah.
Jesus, The Right Stuff is a masterpiece.
The Right Stuff is a masterpiece. Big Chill is more the kind of movie that gets snubbed
Right.
for director because it's
And Bright
they're
Stuff was
like,
such
this is all talk.
a big financial. Why did I pronounce it?
Finance because Larry's back.
Larry, a financial bomb. No, but that movie bombed so hard they probably were like, well, let's not overpraise it with the Oscars.
It didn't clear the tower.
Possibly. I
Yeah.
mean,
I
it's
want to just
Didn't clear
quickly
the
say,
towers
I
good.
think actually The Right Stuff is actually better than Yentl. But
yeah. Well, I agree.
apples
I
and
like
oranges.
Yentl a lot,
Apples
but
and
sure,
oranges.
there are
but-
better films in
But
1983
that
than
is a
Yentl.
weird best director category considering
Yeah,
the movies.
Peter
in play.
Yates and Nichols. I mean, my Nichols. I love my
Well,
Nichols, but for
Yeah,
Silkwood,
Yates, Nichols, and Beresford are all kind
well,
of soft nominees.
Beresford, I would keep.
That's a great movie. I'm
It's a
just
great movie,
surprised, especially because he then gets snubbed for Drive Miss Daisy. It's not like he himself was like a Hollywood favorite.
No,
even at his
what
most
was his big
successful
hit
period.
before Tender Mercies? Breaker Moran.
Yeah.
Breaker Morant.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
Good movie.
Of course, eventually he made Mr. Church, which is based on a true friendship.
It is. It's one of the only
Um,
movies.
Let's do the box office game.
Okay.
November 18th, 1983. The film's opening limited, 13 screens.
One of them,
Healthy.
the Ziegfeld. You know how I know this? Because my mother and father went opening weekend.
It would have been
Makes
amazing
sense.
to
I
see
didn't
it.
go.
Probably would have
Oh
been.
my God! And apparently it was all second wave feminist
Yeah.
Jews going out
There
of their
they are.
skulls.
Telling each other to be nice.
All right.
My father tells the story, and well, I shouldn't.
Okay. So number one at the box office is
I'll tell my Bette Midler story another time. You
You
have me
will.
on for my sixth episode.
you'll
For
be
the
back,
boys.
and we'll put a pin in
Me
Bette
too,
Midler.
for the boys.
Yeah, we're doing Mark Rydell next.
Number one at the box office is a horror sequel.
Uh-huh.
Kind of a fun tagline. I want to tell you the tagline of this film. Warning. In this movie, you are the victim. That's a pretty aggro
Is this a
tagline.
3D sequel?
It sure is.
Is it the 3D Jason?
No.
There was no 3D Freddy, right?
No.
No.
I don't believe so.
83?
In this, you are the. It's not Jaws 3D.
No.
Oh, jeez.
Fuck. What? God damn it!
November 83.
It's got a
3D.
3D horror sequel. You are the victim this time. Is it like a slasher or is it like a force?
It's a force.
It's a force.
Yeah. The poster's insane.
It's not a poltergeist. It's not. Is it Amityville
Oh,
3D?
wait.
It's
Yeah.
Amityville 3D.
Amityville 3D.
Oh.
The poster, which is just like the Amityville house, but there's like a fucking three-fingered claw reaching
Yeah.
out of it.
Yeah.
Never seen Amityville 3D.
neither.
Richard Fleischer film.
I like Dick Fleischer.
Famous old Hollywood
Yeah,
director.
he's great. That was
Tony Roberts is in this one
Max.
because
Max.
fucking Brolin took a hike at this point. So Amityville 3D, yeah, it's opening number one. It's
Well, but
it's,
like you
late
say,
November.
Yentl was a limited
Limited
edition
release. Okay, number two, I just mentioned it. Big Best Picture nominee,
Terms.
generational film. Nope.
Oh, Big Chill.
Big Chill.
Big show.
You know
Big
what?
hit.
The greatest thing about Big Chill is that the movie just ends.
It does. Sure.
They just like.
But
It's like,
do you
it's
know
like
why?
They just ran out of film. I guess.
No, they didn't. We talked about this recently. When were
The
we talking
Costner
about
scene.
this?
Because we
There
did.
was a
We did
whole-
a. I love you to death
That's
episode.
fucking right. There's a whole Costner coda where you were going to finally see Costner,
yeah.
and the whole last 10 minutes of the movie was going to be like flashing back. And Kazan thought it didn't work, and so the movie does kind of just end.
They just didn't shoot an alternate
Yeah,
ending when
yeah.
they cut that out.
But when you watch it, you're like, yeah, it works. I like
It
it.
does
you know,
work.
but it is abrupt.
It works, and even though it's 83, it's a very 70s ending. The movie just ends. They're having oatmeal, and it's just like, and then it's over.
Number three at the box office
Oatmeal with raisins.
hey, now.
is new this week. It is a beloved cult classic family film. I've never seen this film.
Goonies.
No. I've seen that piece of shit.
That was
It's
late.
not a piece of shit, but
Goodness
83
is fine.
it's not very good.
family film.
1983, beloved cult classic family film that you haven't seen.
Yeah.
It's one of those American movies that is sort of like
Oh, Christmas Story.
a Christmas
Yeah.
story.
Oh,
Bob Clark's
wow,
A
that's
Christmas
kind of
Story.
wild you haven't seen it.
Oh, you should see it. It's very good.
yeah.
It's very funny.
Never seen it.
I
I know it's
think-
got a little boy with glasses.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
cute.
it genuinely is good. You do have to work a little bit to get past the meminess of it now, which is a
Right.
problem of the culture, not of
Yeah.
the movie.
Yeah.
Obviously becomes a sort of cable
And also
classic.
that was a movie that only became famous because people would watch it from the 40-minute mark to the 62-minute mark and then
Yes,
go
yes.
But it
see
is
it
a
later
movie where
and-
every isolated scene is entertaining.
It's very
it
funny.
works playing on TBS or TNT, whatever, 24 hours a day because it's
Yeah.
like every bit of this is
It's episodic. It's like AmeriCorps.
It's funny.
It's like Radio Days. It's
Yeah.
like Apollo 10 and a half, a
Keep
space
going.
age.
my
child
review of
switch.
Christmas
Jesus, you're
Story
losing me.
it's like Amicord with less titties,
But a leg.
fewer titties,
But a leg.
but a leg.
Yeah.
but
Bob,
like-
Bob Clark.
Bob Clark,
The Black Christmas
one of the
guy.
weirdest
Canadian.
directing careers ever.
Yeah.
Number 4 at the box office. It is a franchise film, but it's outside the franchise. How
Oh,
to describe
Halloween
this
3
film?
Season of the
No,
Witch.
it's
Oh,
not that good movie though.
shit.
That's a
It's
good
a
movie.
Pink Panther.
Nope.
Fuck. What other franchises fit into what he just said?
Let me think.
It's a franchise film, but it's
Never Say Never Again.
Never. Say
Yeah.
never. Sean Connery is back, and his toupee is better than ever. And Never Say Never Again, directed by Irvin Kershner.
Yeah.
Not very good.
no.
Irvin Kershner.
Is-
He worked with Barbra.
Is that the one that Telly Savalas? No, it's Max von Sydow is in that one.
Klaus
Yes.
Maria Brandauer?
Yeah, well, okay. Anyway, look, someone plays Blofeld in it. I can't remember who.
Wow.
All right, number 5 at the box office. I can't say I know this film.
Hmm.
It was a bomb.
Okay.
It's well known for including Bryan Adams's hit single "Heaven" as part of the soundtrack. Looks like it's a dancing movie.
Like baby, it's hard to believe in heaven.
I mean, that's yes, and "Heaven" is part of the title of this film.
Oh, I
It's
don't
John
know.
G. Avildsen.
It's
Ooh.
not called Just Like Heaven.
No, that's another film with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know,
Reese
but
Witherspoon.
that title could have been used
I feel
a
like
couple
I should
times.
know this. I don't know.
It's an Avildsen.
The stars
Heaven
are
is in the title.
Christopher Atkins,
Okay.
best known from The Blue Lagoon, of course,
Yeah.
and Leslie Ann Warren.
The other
like
side of
her.
Heaven.
A Night in Heaven.
Never would have gotten that.
No.
Leslie Ann Warren.
Opening
Hey.
at number 5. You've also got
Leslie Ann
Warren and Babe.
Leslie Ann
You've
Warren.
also got All the Right Moves.
Married to John Peters.
Yes, All the
It
Right
all
Moves.
comes back together. All the right moves.
Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
You've got Richard Pryor's concert film Here and Now.
Sure.
You've
God,
got The Smurfs and the Magic Flute. I feel like we've
Hell
talked about that
yeah.
before. That's like the
You're
feature
saying
length.
hell yeah to that? The famous tune hater Jordan Hoffman.
Smurfs are.
You like Smurfs.
Smurfs
You
get a
like
pass.
the Smurfs get a pass.
Smurfs are
You've
great.
got Deal of the Century, really strange sort of
that
freaking-
movie is
freaking
terrible,
film. It's
but
not
a
very
very
good.
weird movie. Yeah.
Incredibly
And you've
bizarre
got the fucking pure ass masterpiece, The Dead Zone. That movie rocks.
Yeah, that's another round of applause.
Yeah,
for
you,
The
you
Dead
did it,
Zone.
Carney.
Some might say that's the best Stephen King at it. Well, the Shining.
Some say that.
Shining,
Some say
Carrie.
that.
but
Yeah, all right, it's in the top.
Dreamcatcher.
I think it's in the top 5.
It's up there.
I think
It's
it's in
Yeah,
the
the
top 5.
weasels
I
go
watched
up
that
their
not long
butts.
ago. And it's that's the movie where Christopher Walken became Christopher Walken.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
And
When
also
he's
ice
tilting. Yeah.
Is gonna break
Him-
with the cane, and he smashes the glass swans. The ice
All right.
is
Him
gonna
going
break.
on SNL to promote that film is the other thing that finally makes
Oh,
him.
there you go.
He does Ed Gloucester Trivial Psychic,
Sure, that
which is a
begins
sketch
the-
riffing on Dead Zone that starts the
Oh.
memification of
Yeah.
Walken.
Yeah, prior to that, he was just a
He
good
was
actor.
a talented Oscar-winning character
Yeah.
actor. Yeah.
And
Who's
then-
the most serious actor alive? Playing the most haunted people.
All right, that was Yentl.
Yeah.
Jordan's got to go see Wish.
I got a wish.
Yeah. I bet you're
Okay.
going to love it.
Yeah.
I would prefer if I was going to see the rock band Fish,
Oh,
but
sure.
instead I'm going to see the Walt Disney picture.
I'm sure
Wish.
you're going to do that soon.
Here's my
Who's
prediction.
in Wish? I mean, it's a
I don't
cartoon.
fucking
Nobody's
know.
in it.
We're
but-
done.
Academy
Wrap it
Award
up.
winner Ariana DeBose,
I'm writing a
Chris
red
Pine,
check.
and Alan Tudyk. It's the origin story of the famous wishing star that's run across the history of Disney Pictures.
Really? It's a
Yup.
It's a Disney internal.
The star falls out of
IP?
the sky, and
That's
they have to.
absurd.
Yep.
You know, ladies and gentlemen in the audience,
Uh-huh.
Griffin H. Newman
Mhm.
was invited to see Wish with me this evening.
Yeah.
And he was gonna come.
Yes.
And right before we started recording,
Yeah.
he said,
What's
Jordan,
David doing? Is
I'm
taking a
busy. I don't want to go.
Check. for this.
Oh,
huge
writing the
studio.
check. He's
He's writing
making
a check to Hoffman.
he's making a check not blank.
It's making a
That's
not
very
blank
true.
check.
Is what he's doing. I said
Griffin,
I'm probably.
I
said 50% chance I get asked to take my little cousins to this. There's no way I want to see this movie 2 times.
David Sims earlier alluded to the fact that I've seen him. Today's a Wednesday. We're recording. I've seen him every day this work week. I've seen David on a Monday. I've seen David on a Tuesday. I've seen David on a Wednesday. David, if you want to meet up tomorrow, I'm busy.
Yeah, I'm busy.
But Griffin, I see once every 11 months.
Well, it's been 6 months. You said. I feel like I'd seen you more recently. I've texted you a couple times. I want to get lunch.
That's the thing. We keep saying, let's do lunch.
Okay.
Let's do lunch.
You around next week?
No, it's the Thanksgiving week.
Thanksgiving week
well,
next week.
And that was my one good week.
Booked up.
Actually, I might be free Wednesday. Who's busy Wednesday before Thanksgiving?
And I say to you, let's get lunch next Wednesday. We're certainly not recording.
What kind of food do you want? Look at some matzo ball soup.
Where's the diner in your neighborhood?
Oh my God, the Neptune?
Wrap this episode up. I gotta go.
Go to the-
I swear to God, you're making diner plans
The,
on mic.
the Neptune Diner.
Let's go to the Neptune.
You don't need a rocket to get there.
Hey,
The Neptune Diner in Astoria is fabulous.
let's do it.
All right. They don't have matzo ball, though. They have red
The
chowder.
chicken noodle?
Yeah.
Fine.
All right. This is going to be great.
Great. It's going to be fantastic. I'm not seeing Wish tonight. Here's my
No.
prediction. 2 hours from now, we'll get a text from Jordan, all caps saying, should have had Smurfs in it.
Blank Check with Griffin and David is a great podcast.
Well, thank you.
I know I listen, and it's
Too
been a
kind.
thrill to be on here.
Plugging our own podcast.
I want to say it's been a great time to be on. I'm always a fan. Once every before I come on the show,
Sure.
I'm reminded that you guys have a Reddit, right? You got kids in the
don't,
Reddit.
Don't remind us.
Don't encourage
So I
them.
go in there and I put my name in the search.
Sure.
I've got 2 fans,
Mm.
very vocal.
Yes, I know the people. you're
Yes, there's like 2 Hoffman boosters, and
Sure.
I don't know them personally.
No,
I hope
no.
they're but frothing. When's he coming back? Crickets from most of your,
Sure.
99.9% of your fans, don't want to
It's a
get
refined
involved.
taste. It's a refined taste. It's for the refined palate.
But those
you're
2
you're a
guys,
Hall of Fame guest.
oh, listen to that. And
David's taking a shit.
David is he was aware there's so much toilet paper. Is it really more in that cabinet over there?
Yeah, Ben, do you want to just slide open
Let's do
just
the
so
visual.
Jordan can see
Do the visual.
the visual? I'm not exaggerating here. You see it poking out there,
I
right
see
there?
a cot. Who do you bring girls up here? What's going
No,
on?
no, don't even. It's a folding chair. It's not a cot.
Wow.
Look at that.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's another 30 mega rolls, which
Wow.
means it's the equivalent of 120 rolls.
It's
$50. I
Yeah.
spent $50 American dollars on toilet paper.
That's
that will
IMAX.
last us 2 weeks.
That's the IMAX of toilet paper.
That's the IMAX of toilet paper.
Wow.
Jordan, is there anything you want to plug that isn't our podcast, the one you're on right now?
I mean, listen, we're all just getting by in the world.
We are.
Yeah. I write about movies. I try to live my life. I try to live.
You were the one with the heart out, my friend.
I have to leave right now. But I say
You got a wish to make.
I try to live a righteous life.
Yes.
Good.
I love my wife. And
Wow.
I love my friends. And in all sincerity, I joke around with David sometimes. He's a pretty good guy. I joke around with you,
Okay.
Griffin. Ben, not the typical Ben. This is a Ben Prime today. My first
Ben
time
Prime.
meeting Ben Prime. Very nice to meet you. And to the listeners out there, thanks for everything.
Jordan, you're a mensch. Bye. A round of applause for Jordan Hoffman. Thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. David is getting into his car and driving away. He has his car parked in the studio. We didn't even make a joke about this movie being shot in Czechoslovakia.
We mentioned that it was, but yes, the Czech Republic. I mean, eventually.
Blank Czech Republic. Yeah. It's David. Jacket is on. Bag is on. Jordan's adding layers. Ben Frisch, thank you for filling in again.
My pleasure.
Thank you, man.
Doing us a real solid. Thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you to Marie Barty for being our associate producer on this podcast. Thank you to Joe Bowen, Pat Reynolds for our artwork, JJ Birch for making it through all 900 pages of the Barbra memoir in time for these episodes. Thank you to AJ McKeon, Alex Barron for our editing. You give me the hurried up signal. I gotta thank everybody. I said them. Leigh Montgomery, the Great American Novel, for our theme song. Go to blankcheckpod.com for links to some real nerdy shit, including Blank Check special features, our Patreon where we do film series. Terminator. Dun, 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 dun. Tune in next week for Prince of Tides,
We already recorded it. Katie's on it.
The Queen of the Carolinas, And as always, Jordan is currently using yet another roll of toilet paper.